She was a low-key indie musician, while he was just a college student who worked late and caught the last train home every night. Though they were complete strangers, they crossed paths almost every day. But the young man never imagined that the singer he was obsessed with had been right in front of him all along. College student Lee Rae-eun worked late every night and had to catch the last train home, which was why he kept seeing the same girl carrying a guitar. Her name was Shin Hae-in. Rae-eun could no longer remember how many times he had run into her there. Yet the two of them had never exchanged a single word. It looked like Hae-in had gotten off late again tonight. As usual, Rae-eun sat down, pulled out his phone, and played his favorite song. Why did she always carry a guitar? Was she a music major, a member of an indie band, or perhaps a street performer? Hae-in seemed to notice him staring at her, so Rae-eun quickly looked down and pretended nothing had happened, even though he was dying of embarrassment. He then put in his Bluetooth earbuds and continued listening to music. As always, he played Dark Planet by his favorite indie artist, Endless Afternoon. No matter how many times he heard it, the intro still sounded perfect, and the lyrics were incredible. A song this good made him wish he had someone to share it with, or even sing along to. But why did his earbuds sound so muffled today? Were they broken? Rae-eun turned up the volume to test them, only for Hae-in to suddenly lean over and shout right next to his ear. It scared him half to death. Seeing how close she was, Rae-eun hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Could you turn your phone down? I can hear it clearly from over here." Only then did Rae-eun realize Bluetooth was turned off, meaning his earbuds had never connected. Hae-in looked at him and asked, "You must really like that song. The one by Endless Afternoon." Rae-eun stared at her in surprise. "You know this song too? That's amazing. I'm a huge fan of hers." He became so excited that he practically started waving his arms. "You're the first person I've ever met who likes Endless Afternoon. Her songs are incredible. It's just a shame she's still an unknown indie artist." Hae-in replied, "She really doesn't have many fans. Her style doesn't fit current trends, and she never promotes herself or shows her face." Exactly. If she held a few live shows, there would at least be some performance clips online, but she seems way too laid back about everything. No one even knows what she looks like. So far, all she's posted is one drawing of her original character, Obsidian. Even sharing a little about her daily life or posting a selfie would probably help her gain followers. Hae-in suddenly asked, "Do you think she should show her face?" Rae-eun thought for a moment. "Not necessarily. As a fan, I do want to meet her in person and find out what she looks like. But whether she only wants to focus on making music or prefers to remain mysterious, I don't mind. What I like is the real Endless Afternoon." Hearing that, Hae-in smiled softly. She then raised her head and asked, "Haven't we run into each other here a few times already?" Rae-eun awkwardly scratched his head. "I don't really remember." Just then, the train slowly pulled into the station, but Hae-in said, "Do you really think I haven't noticed you secretly staring at me?" Rae-eun stared at her in shock. It felt like a bomb went off in his head. Her words instantly exposed his lie. So Hae-in had known all along that he kept looking at her. She had even noticed that they took the same last train every night. Even when Rae-eun returned to work the next day, he still could not calm down. Noticing how distracted he looked, his boss asked, "Lee Rae-eun, what happened? Did another idiot customer leave our restaurant a bad rating?" Rae-eun anxiously asked, "Boss, what am I supposed to do? What if she thinks I'm a stalker or some kind of creep?" His boss gave him a confused look. What exactly happened? Rae-eun then told her everything that had happened the night before. He was worried that he had left Hae-in with a terrible impression, and nervously said, "Would you keep going to a station where some creep was hanging around? You'd obviously start avoiding it." His boss reassured him, "If you're that worried, just have a proper conversation with her next time. Then you'll know what she really thinks of you." Always eager to turn everything into romance, his boss added, "And if you two get along, it might even become the start of something romantic." Rae-eun replied shyly, "I don't have the time or energy for that right now. I graduate next year, so I need to prepare for job hunting while working to pay my rent. I'd be more than happy just becoming her friend. You know, the kind of friend I can talk about music with." But his boss confidently declared, "That's how most relationships start." Rae-eun immediately got flustered, but she simply handed him an order slip. "Get back to work. Someone just placed a delivery order." After finally making it through another late-night shift, Rae-eun kept wondering whether Hae-in would take the last train again. If he saw her, he wanted to apologize properly and clear up any bad impression she had of him. More importantly, he wanted to talk endlessly with her about Endless Afternoon, finding someone else who loved the same obscure artist felt almost impossible. But when he reached the platform, he found an older man snoring loudly across the bench. Why was the man sleeping there so late at night? Worse still, that was the exact seat Ryo-in used every day. Now, he could not casually sit beside Hae-in and naturally start a conversation. He decided it would be better to focus on studying tonight. Walking up and forcing a conversation would feel strange, and he did not want to create another unnecessary misunderstanding. Just then, Hae-in's voice came from behind him. "Are you planning to stand there all night?" Was she talking to him? Ryo-in turned around in surprise. Hae-in continued, "The train won't be here for a while. Are you really going to wait standing up?" She lightly patted the bench. "There's an empty seat right beside me. Come sit down. We can wait for the last train together." Ryo-in looked at the seat beside her and hesitated for a moment. He was only going to sit there for a little while, so it should be fine. As soon as he sat down, Hae-in asked, "You're going home late again today. What kind of work do you do? And why are you always taking the subway at this hour?" Ryo-in replied, "I work the evening shift at a cafe. My boss usually lets me leave early, but when things get busy, I still end up working late." Hae-in nodded. "So you have a part-time job. Are you still in school too? Balancing work and school must be exhausting." Ryo-in asked, "Do you get home this late because of work too?" With a completely straight face, Hae-in said, "I spend my nights playing with a bunch of older men who have some very unusual tastes." Ryo-in instantly froze. She added that their interests were extremely hardcore and unique, and she could not leave until she had finished serving every customer. What exactly were these unusual tastes? Had she entered some dark world he knew nothing about? Seeing the shock on Ryo-in's face, Hae-in finally burst out laughing. She stretched and explained, "I'm talking about a music studio with rehearsal rooms and recording booths. A lot of office workers book very late sessions, so as the studio manager, I often get off work after midnight. Sometimes I even have to stay up all night." After standing there in stunned silence, Ryo-in broke into a cold sweat. "Oh, so that's what you meant." Hae-in suddenly glanced at him. "You weren't imagining anything weird just now, were you?" Ryo-in hurriedly waved his hands and tried to explain, but the more flustered he became, the worse his explanation sounded. Hae-in changed the subject. "You're busy with both work and school, so you probably don't have much time to search for new music. How did you discover an obscure artist like Endless Afternoon?" Ryo-in recalled, "One time I caught a really bad cold and was lying alone in my apartment. Maybe the room was too quiet, because I suddenly felt incredibly lonely, so I played some random music just to fill the silence. That was when I happened to discover Dark Planet by Endless Afternoon. The melody caught my attention the first time I heard it. But the more I listened, the more beautiful the entire song became, especially the line, 'It's okay to let things unfold on their own.' It felt like the song was comforting me and telling me that I could finally relax." Ryo-in then asked, "Which of her songs is your favorite?" Hae-in suddenly turned toward him and softly replied, "In the Tide is really good too." Ryo-in reacted as though he had just discovered a whole new world. "That song is amazing too. The moment the rhythm suddenly changes is incredible. I think she's especially talented with electronic instruments." Just then, an announcement played over the speakers, saying the train was approaching. Only then did Ryo-in realize how quickly time had passed. Hae-in looked at him and said, "That lyric you mentioned, it's okay to let things unfold on their own. If Endless Afternoon heard what you said, I'm sure she'd be really happy." Ryo-in smiled awkwardly. "Really? Now you're making me feel a little embarrassed." Hoping to get closer to her, he introduced himself. "By the way, my name is Lee Ryo-in. What's yours?" As she stepped onto the train, she turned back and smiled at him. "Shin Hae-in. Next time we meet, make sure you say hello first." After returning home and taking a shower, Shin Hae-in could not stop thinking about what had happened at the station. He said his name was Lee Ryo-in. He really is an interesting guy. She remembered another night on the subway when a drunk older man had dropped his wallet. Ryo-in was the one who picked it up and quietly slipped it back into the man's pocket. So he was actually a genuinely kind person. What surprised her even more was that he was a fan of Endless Afternoon. If he found out she was Endless Afternoon, would he be happy? Or would he laugh at her without holding back, just like those people had? Then again, what Ryo-in liked was Endless Afternoon's music. There was no reason to reveal her identity. She could simply continue focusing on making music. Besides, it sometimes felt like people did not truly admire her. They admired Obsidian, the original character she had created. The next day, Hae-in arrived at the music studio and looked over the new drawing of Obsidian she had just finished. She wondered whether she should upload this kind of artwork to her profile. Just then, several customers entered the studio. One of them wanted to reserve a room for the following Monday. After completing the reservation, he blushed and asked Hae-in for her phone number, but she immediately turned him down. With no other customers around, Hae-in decided to clean the studio. She grabbed the floor scrubber and began working, when her uncle suddenly walked inside. He was also the owner of the music studio. Her uncle asked, "Why did you reject that guy? He seemed pretty decent to me." Hae-in replied, "I don't like talking on the phone. Whether it's texting or calling, you can't see the other person's expression. More importantly, his band style isn't the kind of music I like." Her uncle then told her that the 10 o'clock reservation had been cancelled, so she could leave as soon as she finished cleaning. He also handed her a beautifully wrapped box and said it was a gift. Her uncle explained that today was a day when guys traditionally gave gifts to girls, and that the dessert inside tasted especially good with coffee while writing songs. Afterward, Hae-in stayed at the studio and practiced guitar for a while. Meanwhile, all the customers at the cafe had already left. Ryo-eun said goodbye to his boss, packed up his things, and finished his shift. When he reached the bench at the subway station, he suddenly felt completely exhausted. He had been overwhelmed ever since the semester began. He needed to use the next break to improve his language exam score. Just then, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Ryo-eun looked up and realized it was Hae-in. His face immediately turned red as he greeted her first, and he also noticed the beautifully wrapped gift box in her hand. Hae-in told Ryo-eun that it was White Day and that the box was a gift she had received. Ryo-eun immediately assumed she must be incredibly popular. After all, she was beautiful, charming, and had a style that made her stand out, so there were probably plenty of handsome guys around her. But the next second, Hae-in suddenly held the box out to him. "Have some and keep studying. Sugar helps your brain work." Ryo-eun looked at her in confusion. "Why are you giving it to me? Isn't this a gift you received?" Hae-in explained that she did not like sweets, so it would only end up being thrown away. Even so, Ryo-eun still hesitated. "That doesn't feel right. How could I take something another guy gave you?" Hae-in calmly replied, "My uncle gave it to me." "Did you seriously think I was giving you a present from some other guy?" Ryo-eun's face instantly flushed red all the way to his neck. He quickly accepted the box and changed the subject. "What is it?" Hae-in replied, "My uncle said it's handmade caramel. Apparently it's pretty popular lately. It's just a dessert. You can eat some whenever studying wears you out." It was Ryo-eun's first time seeing handmade caramel, so he said, "You should take a few too. Your uncle gave them to you, so you should at least find out what they taste like." Hae-in thought for a moment. "You're right. If I don't tell him how they tasted tomorrow, he'll probably be upset. Then just give me one." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned toward Ryo-eun and opened her mouth. Her sudden action made him panic. "You want me to feed you?" Hae-in explained. "I got oil on my hands while working on my guitar, so I don't want to touch it." She even stuck out her tongue, signaling for him to place the caramel on it. With no other choice, Ryo-eun unwrapped one and held it out to her. Hae-in leaned forward and bit the caramel from his hand. But the next second, she suddenly cried out, nearly scaring the life out of Ryo-eun. Then she playfully said, "This thing is so sweet, it's ridiculous." Ryo-eun looked at her in confusion. "Is it really that sweet?" He unwrapped one and placed it in his mouth, only to be hit by a caramel flavor so sweet that it almost tasted bitter. "You definitely need coffee or bitter tea with this. Otherwise, it's way too overwhelming." Hae-in then told him to eat another one, but Ryo-eun immediately waved his hands and refused. The next morning, his phone alarm kept ringing non-stop. Ryo-eun felt as though he had slept for less than 30 minutes. Yet morning had already arrived. As he wondered what to eat for breakfast, he suddenly noticed the handmade caramels Hae-in had given him sitting on the table. The moment he put one into his mouth, the overwhelming sweetness instantly woke up his exhausted brain. It was practically the ultimate wake-up snack, making it perfect for breakfast. Just then, a recommendation notification suddenly appeared on Ryo-eun's phone. Endless Afternoon had actually uploaded a new post. He could hardly believe it. That single update was enough to keep him energized for the entire day. His boss immediately noticed the change in him. "You're unusually motivated today. Something good must have happened." Ryo-eun excitedly told her, "My favorite musician finally posted something new. She hasn't updated her page in ages. Based on her usual pattern, she might be about to release a new song. Just thinking about it makes me too excited to sleep." His boss replied disappointedly, "So that's all? I was hoping you'd had some kind of romantic encounter. What happened with that girl you kept meeting on the last train?" Have you made any progress? Ryo-un quickly denied it. I don't see her that way. But you see each other all the time. Haven't you at least gotten a little closer? Now that she mentioned it, Ryo-un remembered that they had already exchanged names during their last conversation. Heian had even given him handmade caramel on White Day. His boss became even more excited than Ryo-un after hearing that. He quickly explained that he had introduced himself first and only asked for Heian's name afterward. But his romance-obsessed boss was already letting her imagination run wild. She even convinced herself that the two of them had gone on a date or met up for drinks. Just then, a customer entered the cafe and ordered a cappuccino. Ryo-un felt like he had seen the man somewhere before. The longer he looked, the more familiar the man seemed. Then he realized it was Sang Hyun-jae, one of the hottest singers in the country. His boss told him that Hyun-jae was actually a regular at the cafe. Ryo-un could not believe that one of the most popular musicians around frequently visited the cafe where he worked. Before he knew it, another late-night shift had finally come to an end. Ryo-un wondered whether he would see Heian tonight and found himself hoping she would be there. Maybe she had also seen Endless Afternoon's latest post. He desperately wanted to discuss the teaser for her new song, hidden inside the obsidian artwork. Just thinking about it made him both excited and nervous. Being able to freely talk with someone about the things he loved felt incredible. But when Ryo-un reached the platform, he stared at the empty bench and wondered, is she not coming today either? He had not seen Heian since White Day. Was she busy, or had her work schedule changed? Or had he done something wrong and caused her to start avoiding him? A strange wave of disappointment immediately washed over him. It seemed he had gotten his hopes up all by himself, only to end up disappointed again. But then Heian's voice suddenly came from behind him. What are you so disappointed about? She appeared without warning, nearly giving him a heart attack. Ryo-un awkwardly scratched his head. It's been a while. I thought I wouldn't get to see you tonight. Heian asked, so when you said you were disappointed, was it because I wasn't here? Ryo-un nodded awkwardly, but something about her felt different tonight. When he looked more closely, he noticed that her cheeks were bright red. Ryo-un quickly asked, Shin Heian, have you been drinking? She covered her face and laughed. Is it that obvious? I stopped by a bar and had a few drinks by myself. I've been completely focused on something wee-wee, and it's almost finished, so I decided to let myself relax a little. Ryo-un smiled. That sounds like good news. Can you tell me what you've been working on? But Heian only gazed at him through hazy eyes. It's a secret. Seeing her like this sent a jolt through Ryo-un. He never expected Heian to look this adorable when she was drunk. Then, he remembered that he needed to take control of the conversation tonight, so he quickly changed the subject. Heian, did you see the new obsidian picture Endless Afternoon posted? But just as he was about to explain what made the artwork so interesting, the station speakers announced the train was approaching. Why was the train arriving so quickly tonight? He still had so much he wanted to say, yet they were about to separate. And with all the noise inside the subway, they would not be able to talk properly. What was he supposed to do? He had so many things he wanted to tell her tonight. Once the new song was released, discussing the clues hidden in the artwork would be pointless, and they might end up with nothing left to talk about. So Ryo-un gathered all his courage and called out her name. Would you like to go have another drink with me? The moment the words left his mouth, he felt his face heating up. Heian stared at him in confusion. Right now? But this is the last train of the night. Only then did Ryo-un realize how sudden his invitation had sounded. Just because he wanted to talk with her a little longer, he had suddenly invited her out for drinks in the middle of the night. What if she thought he was some creep who randomly hit on women in the street? Ryo-un immediately panicked and started apologizing. But to his surprise, Heian suddenly said, sure. Thinking he had misheard her, he froze on the spot. Heian stood up and moved closer to him. I don't know why, but I don't feel like going home this early tonight either, so let's go have another drink together. Ryo couldn't believe his luck. In the quiet subway car, the only sound came from the overhead straps rattling as the train moved. Ryo-un sat beside Heian, clutching his backpack and unable to sit still. Their shoulders kept brushing against each other by accident. The reason such a tiny touch made his heart race was probably because it had been so long since he had gone drinking with someone, making him secretly excited. Heian suddenly looked up. Lee Ryo-un, where do you live? He replied, near Blue Sky Station. Then let's drink somewhere around there. You can walk home afterward and I'll take a taxi. Don't worry, I have a full-time job. I can afford the fare. Ryo-un scratched his head awkwardly. Then I'll pay for your taxi. Heian smiled. I already thought all of that through before agreeing to drink with you. But if I get really drunk, you better take good care of me. As soon as she said that, Haein motioned for Ryo-eun to lean closer, saying she had a secret to tell him. She whispered into his ear, "Whenever I get drunk, I sleep completely naked." Ryo-eun instantly froze in shock. But Haein kept staring at him with a strangely suggestive look in her eyes. Just then, an announcement sounded inside the train. "Please exit through the doors on the left." On their way out of the subway station, Haein finally said, "I was only teasing you back there." She then asked, "Do you live around here?" Ryo-eun replied, "My apartment is about a 5-minute walk from here." "An apartment? So you live alone?" Ryo-eun said, "There's a pretty good draft beer pub nearby. I'll take you there." Haein smiled and teased him, "I'm only following you because I trust you completely." But when they arrived at the pub, Ryo-eun suddenly stopped in his tracks. The place had already shut down. He apologized awkwardly. "I'm sorry, I haven't been here in a while, so I didn't know it had closed." Ryo-eun quickly pulled out his phone to search for another bar nearby. But it had been so long since he last went drinking that he had no idea what other places were still around. He was afraid that picking somewhere at random might ruin the mood. Even if they were only having a casual drink, he did not want to mess up the night. Yet his phone connection chose that exact moment to become painfully slow. Haein watched the flustered Ryo-eun with a puzzled expression. Then she said, "I actually have a good idea. It's already this late, so most places are probably closed. That only leaves one place we can go." She gave a sly smile. "You know where I mean, don't you?" Ryo-eun's heart skipped a beat. She can't possibly mean my place, right? With his nerves running wild, he brought Haein back to his apartment. On the way, they stopped at a convenience store to buy some snacks to go with their drinks. After stepping inside, Haein looked around. "Your place is surprisingly clean." Ryo-eun silently thanked himself for randomly cleaning the apartment the previous week. Otherwise, she would have seen the pigsty he normally lived in. Haein suddenly turned around and asked, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Ryo-eun looked confused. "Why are you asking that?" Looking tired, Haein sat down beside the couch. "I don't want anyone thinking I'm some crazy woman who barged into a man's apartment when he already has a girlfriend. It could cause a huge misunderstanding, and I have no intention of becoming the bad guy." When Ryo-eun told her he did not have a girlfriend, he could clearly tell that Haein seemed relieved and was suddenly in a much better mood. He sat down beside her and asked her the same question. But Haein shyly replied, "I'm already seeing someone. He's a foreigner named Liam. He has a sharp tongue, but he's an amazing singer and a great fighter." Ryo-eun immediately became serious. "Then isn't it inappropriate for you to come drinking alone with me?" Haein looked at him with flushed cheeks and burst out laughing. "I was just kidding. Liam is actually the lead singer of a band. I thought you knew a lot about music, so I assumed you'd realize it was a joke." Ryo-eun replied helplessly, "How was I supposed to know that? But seriously, you scared me. For a moment, I thought I had unknowingly hurt someone." Haein let out a helpless sigh. Then she raised the can in her hand. "Come on, let's have a toast. Because no one is going to get hurt tonight." But Ryo-eun still could not believe that she truly did not have a boyfriend. Haein replied helplessly, "I really don't. Why is that so hard for you to believe?" And so, the two of them drank together while talking about their shared love of music. Ryo-eun showed her the new obsidian artwork posted by Endless Afternoon and excitedly said, "This has to be a teaser for her next song. Look, 4 objects are falling off obsidian. That definitely means Endless Afternoon is releasing a new song in April, and one of those objects is a ukulele, which means the next track will probably be built around a ukulele or guitar." But when Haein created the artwork, she had not hidden any of those so-called clues. As he continued talking, the drunken Ryo-eun became so emotional that he started crying. "I'm so happy I discovered all these clues. Just thinking that she might release a new song in April is driving me crazy with excitement." "Haein, aren't you excited too?" But Haein could only panic internally. "I already finished recording the song, but I never planned to release it in April. Do I seriously need to hurry up and sign a distribution deal now?" Ryo-eun continued staring at Haein before suddenly saying, "Your voice sounds a lot like Endless Afternoons. You both have that slightly hazy, husky tone, and you speak in such a gentle way. But Endless Afternoon's voice is clearer and more beautiful. She'll always be the best to me." Haein replied helplessly, "I never realized you loved Endless Afternoon this much. You're already drunk, yet you still can't stop talking about her." Only then did Ryo-eun realize something. "Are you getting bored?" But Haein replied, "I think it's interesting. It's much better than talking about something serious." After saying that, Heian stood up from the floor and dropped onto the couch with a soft thud. Keep talking. I want to listen while lying down. Ryoun immediately objected. You can't do that. You'll fall asleep. I'm not some late-night radio host. But the next second, Heian suddenly shifted into another position and lay across the couch. I'll listen like this. If I fall asleep, I'll just take a nap before leaving. Ryoun stared at her in disbelief. How was anyone supposed to stay calm in a situation like this? He quickly asked, Are you seriously planning to sleep here? Is that not allowed? You're not teasing me again, are you? Before Ryoun could react, Heian suddenly leaned closer to him. Whether I'm joking or being serious is entirely up to you. After all, it's your place. You get to decide. As Ryoun stared at the beautiful face right in front of him, his mind filled with memories of their time together at the subway station. Deep down, he found himself hoping that she truly meant what she had said. Since the next day was Sunday and neither of them had finished talking, he finally said, Then stay a little longer. I'll tell you more. Hearing that, Heian immediately brightened up. But the next second, she suddenly sat up and unbuttoned her pants, causing Ryoun to spit out his beer. He hurriedly stopped her. What are you doing? Why are you suddenly taking off your pants? Heian innocently explained. The beer made my stomach feel bloated, so I just undid the button. It feels more comfortable this way. Ryoun immediately became embarrassed. Oh, so that's all. Should I get you something looser to change into? I have some clean sweats here. They might be a little big on you, but they should be much more comfortable. Just as Ryoun stood up to get her some clothes, Heian told him they had run out of beer and that the can in her hand was the last one. Ryoun asked, Do you still want more? I can go out and buy some. He never expected the quiet and reserved Heian to be such a heavy drinker. You can change while I run down to the convenience store. I'll be right back. Do you need anything else? Maybe a toothbrush or some other toiletries? Heian replied, No, I already have almost everything I need in my bag. But could you pick up one thing for me? I checked the date and my period should be starting soon, but I forgot to bring any pads. Ryoun never imagined she would ask a grown man like him to buy something like that. After reaching the convenience store, he grabbed the beer first and then headed to the personal care aisle. Heian had to mean sanitary pads, right? But as he stared at the countless different products on the shelves, he had no idea what the differences were, and he was far too embarrassed to call her and ask. Just then, Ryoun noticed a red box of condoms on the bottom shelf. An absurd thought immediately entered his mind. There's no way Heian meant this, right? The next second, he slapped himself across the face. What was he even thinking? He had clearly lost his mind. Still, it would be a lie to say that absolutely nothing had crossed his mind. After all, Heian was an incredibly attractive woman. That was exactly why he refused to let one reckless impulse ruin everything between them. He did not want to repeat what had happened before, when he only focused on confessing his feelings and ended up being abandoned. Right now, simply seeing Heian whenever he caught the last train was already enough to make him happy. But what was he supposed to do if she was the one who approached him first? Then he would not exactly have a reason to reject her. The thought alone made Ryoun's entire face turn bright red. Even imagining something like that felt unbelievable. Before long, Ryoun finished shopping and returned home. But when he entered the apartment and called Heian's name, there was no response. She had already changed clothes and fallen asleep on his bed. Her breathing was so soft that he could barely hear it. Ryoun suddenly remembered that she had been completely focused on finishing something lately. It seemed that the moment she finally relaxed, all her exhaustion had caught up with her. But leaving her asleep like that was not a good idea. She could easily catch a cold. So Ryoun leaned close to her ear and whispered, Wake up for a second. Let me tuck you in. You'll get sick if you sleep like this. But Heian suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck. With her face only inches away, even their breathing began to feel unbearably hot. Fortunately, Ryoun was still sober enough to think clearly. He quickly called her name and asked what she was doing. As he struggled to sit back up, Heian gazed at him through drunken eyes and whispered, You're really handsome. You're exactly my type. It's almost like you were made to match everything I like. Ryoun's ears instantly burned, and he could hear his own heart pounding. But the very next second, Heian turned her head and fell asleep. What just happened? Had she been talking in her sleep? Seeing how peacefully she was sleeping, Ryoun quickly covered her with the blanket. When he remembered how close he had come to falling on top of her, and how he had nearly lost himself in the touch of her slender fingers and the warmth of her breath, he was relieved he still had some sense left. But after lying down on the couch, the restless Ryoun could not fall asleep. If Hae-in had kept holding him like that, he probably would not have been able to push her away. He knew these feelings might never lead anywhere, but his heart refused to stop racing whenever he thought about her. It felt like he had only just fallen asleep when morning arrived. Reo-un groggily sat up on the couch and immediately felt a sharp pain in his neck. If he had known this would happen, he would have slept on the floor instead. Just then, he noticed that the bed was empty. Had she gone to the bathroom? Then, Reo-un noticed a sticky note lying on the floor. Hae-in had already gone home, and before leaving, she had even put the clothes she borrowed into the washing machine. She had also neatly organized the beer cans he had carelessly left scattered around the night before. But then, Reo-un spotted a familiar red box nearby, and initially assumed it was leftover trash. The moment he took a closer look, he froze. Why is this in my apartment? How did it even get here? He clearly remembered that he had never intended to buy condoms the night before. He could still remember standing in front of the shelf at the convenience store, telling himself that he had only invited Hae-in over because he wanted to talk, and that she did not seem like the kind of woman who would casually sleep with someone. But somehow, when he checked out, he had absent-mindedly tossed the box of condoms in with everything else. What was he supposed to do now? Hae-in had definitely seen it. She would think Reo-un was a pervert who had been planning something from the beginning. She might even believe that his invitation to drink had been made with ulterior motives. After finishing work that evening, Reo-un returned to the subway station. His emotions were a complete mess. He wanted to see Hae-in, yet he was terrified of facing her. When he saw her sitting on the bench, he deliberately cleared his throat twice. Hae-in looked up from her phone and glanced at him. "You're here, Lee Reo-un." But at that moment, Reo-un had no idea what to say. He awkwardly sat down beside her, desperately trying to think of a way to explain everything. Should he claim that he bought the condoms for a school assignment and needed them for a product marketing report? No, maybe he could say they were a lucky charm that supposedly brought good luck on exams. He needed a different excuse. But lying to her would be far worse. Reo-un finally decided to admit exactly what had happened. Even if Hae-in yelled at him, it would still be better than deceiving her. He raised his head. "Hae-in, about that thing in my apartment last night." But before he could finish, she interrupted him. "Let me speak first. There's something I need to tell you first. For a while, I think I need to keep my distance from you." Reo-un quickly asked, "Why? Isn't this a little too sudden?" Hae-in lowered her voice. "I realize that whenever I'm with you, I barely have my guard up at all. Especially after what happened last time. Maybe it's because I grew up talking about music with the members of my uncle's band. So when I'm with you, I naturally forget to keep proper boundaries. Before I knew it, I had crossed the line. That's why I think I should keep my distance from you for a while." Reo-un stared at her in confusion and cautiously asked, "Is this because of the box of condoms I bought?" Hae-in suddenly gave him a strange look. "So you really are hung up on that?" I was surprised when I saw them, but when I thought about it, having thoughts like that after drinking isn't exactly strange. We're both adults, after all. I just never expected you to be that kind of guy. Reo-un's heart nearly stopped, and he froze with a look of pure shock. He hurriedly explained that he had never invited her out for drinks with any hidden intentions. He had only wanted to talk with her about endless afternoon. Seeing how panicked he was, Hae-in finally stopped teasing him. "Anyway, when I said I crossed the line, I wasn't talking about that. Nothing happened between us." Reo-un became even more confused. "Then what exactly did you mean?" From the look on Hae-in's face, she seemed to be struggling to say it aloud. After a moment, she covered her mouth and admitted in embarrassment, "Because I was unbelievably annoying that night." Reo-un stared at her, completely puzzled. Hae-in continued, "If you don't understand, think back to everything I did that night. You invited me out for drinks, but I barged into your apartment, shamelessly wore your clothes, made you sleep on the couch, and then acted like it was perfectly natural for me to take your bed. Everything I did that night was rude and bizarre." So that was what she meant. But Reo-un had never cared about any of it. She continued, "I didn't realize what I was doing while I was drunk, but once I sobered up, I felt terrible. I was too embarrassed to even face you, so I ran away." Hearing her explanation, Reo-un was genuinely surprised. He had always thought Hae-in was someone who looked cold and handled everything without hesitation. He never imagined that she could regret her actions, feel embarrassed, or even apologize so sincerely. It was completely different from what he had expected. At that moment, Reo-un found this side of Hae-in unbelievably adorable. Hae-in went on, "That's why I want to keep my distance. If we get too close, I'm afraid I'll do something like that again." So, for a while, I probably won't come to this station. Ryo-in instantly panicked the moment he heard that. He stared directly into Hae-in's eyes and said seriously, "No." Hae-in asked innocently, "Why not?" Ryo-in stumbled over his words. "I told you, didn't I? Endless Afternoon might release a new song soon. I really want to talk about it with you." But Hae-in asked worriedly, "What if I do something inappropriate again whenever we're together? You've already seen what I'm like when I'm drunk. If this keeps going, I might eventually do something even worse." Ryo-in answered without hesitation, "I don't care. Everything you think was rude, I can handle. Whether you tell me stupid jokes or make a mess when you're drunk, I can accept all of it. But you absolutely cannot use that as a reason to stay away from me." Hae-in stared at Ryo-in with an unreadable look in her eyes. Just then, the train slowly pulled into the station. Before leaving, she suddenly asked, "Can I choose the drinking snacks next time?" Ryo-in looked confused. "What drinking snacks?" "The ones we'll eat the next time I come over to drink at your place. We can't drink without snacks, can we?" The moment he heard that, Ryo-in instantly perked up. "Of course, you can choose whatever you want." As she was about to leave, Hae-in quietly added, "Make sure you keep what you bought earlier. It might come in handy someday." What was she talking about? Ryo-in suddenly realized she might mean the red box. But Hae-in turned back and smiled. "Idiot, I meant the beer." After another exhausting day, Hae-in returned home with her guitar on her back. Once inside, she took off her coat out of habit. She still could not stop thinking about what had happened. "Ever since I got drunk that night, I've been worried Ryo-in might be angry or even start hating me. That's why I tried to keep my distance. But when I think about everything I did that night, even if he accepted my rude behavior and forgave me, that doesn't mean that embarrassing night will simply disappear. He'll probably remember it every now and then." The thought filled Hae-in with regret. Why had she behaved like that and drunk so much? She had zero boundaries. What if she had not fallen asleep that night? Would things have become even worse? Something else might have happened between them. Just imagining it gave her chills. Hae-in immediately sat up. "What am I even thinking? I need to stop letting my imagination run wild. I should take a shower and work on my song." I suddenly got inspired in the rehearsal room earlier and recorded a short section. Just then, she glanced at her phone and noticed a new private message. It was from Sung Hyun-jae. Why would he contact her? Could someone be impersonating him? Curious, Hae-in opened the message. It really was Hyun-jae, and he was inviting her to collaborate on a song. The next day, Hae-in practiced guitar in the rehearsal room as usual. But, with the offer weighing on her mind, she could not concentrate at all. She kept thinking about the message Hyun-jae had sent the day before. After struggling with the decision for a long time, she ultimately chose not to reply. Still, collaborating with an artist whose style was so different from hers could be incredibly interesting. Just then, someone knocked on the rehearsal room door. It was Hae-in's uncle. "Are you still practicing?" Hae-in replied, "I'm already finished. I was just about to clean up." Her uncle said, "I'm ordering delivery tonight. Want some extra spicy tteokbokki?" Hae-in gave him a doubtful look. "Are you sure you want to eat something that spicy this late?" But the next second she changed her mind. "Of course I want some. Tell them to make mine even spicier. I deserve to treat myself today." While they ate, her uncle sighed happily. "Tteokbokki really is the perfect food when you're stressed. This is incredible. You should eat more before all the rice cakes stick together." But Hae-in remained distracted, still wondering whether she should reply to Hyun-jae's message. Would it seem rude if she waited too long? She needed to make a decision soon. Seeing how unenthusiastic she looked, her uncle assumed the tteokbokki was not spicy enough. So Hae-in finally told him about the private message from Sung Hyun-jae. Her uncle looked genuinely surprised. "Sung Hyun-jae personally asked you to collaborate? That's an incredible opportunity." Hae-in replied, "I know it is, but it all happened so fast that I still don't know what to do." Her uncle asked, "Did he demand something unreasonable?" "No, it's just that he's one of the hottest musicians right now. If I work with him, people are obviously going to start paying attention to me too. I'm worried my identity might be exposed." Her uncle believed she was worrying for nothing. He wanted to tell her to silence every critic with her talent. But when it came to Hae-in, he could not say something like that so casually. He knew exactly what she had experienced as a child. He knew how much pain she had endured, and how the scars from that time continued to torment her, even now. More than anything, he wanted her to overcome those wounds, spread her wings again, and pursue her dream of making music. As a fellow musician, he knew Hae-in was an exceptionally gifted artist. So her uncle suggested, "Why don't you meet him and talk first? That would be better than worrying about it alone. You're both musicians." He might understand what you're going through, and even offer some useful advice. Even if you decide not to collaborate, there's no harm in getting to know him. But make sure you get his autograph when you meet. We can use it to promote the studio. By the time Haein finally finished work, she had already spent the entire day agonizing over the offer and had not touched the new song she originally planned to revise. Just then, Haein noticed several celebrity posters displayed downstairs. When she stepped closer, she realized that some of them featured her favorite rock idols. She could not help wondering how they managed to live normal lives while constantly surrounded by public attention. How much courage did it take to endure that kind of pressure? She wished she could face the world as fearlessly as they did. Later that night, the subway station was unusually quiet, with barely anyone else around. Ryoun was childishly pinching his cheeks as he practiced smiling. The moment he saw Haein, he called out, "Haein, come over here. There was a special career event today, and I learned some new interview techniques." Apparently, a natural smile leaves a better impression. You can take a look at this booklet too. After flipping through a few pages, Haein said, "I never realized job interviews required this much preparation." Ryoun explained that there was still much more to prepare. He needed to come up with a personal story that matched the company's culture and practice a proper self-introduction. Haein studied the booklet carefully, looking as though she was thinking about something. She then told Ryoun that he needed to maintain eye contact with the interviewer while answering questions. She even suggested that they practice right there. Haein stood up and said, "I'll sit on the bench across from you and ask random questions. All you have to do is stay here and answer. If you look away from me, you're immediately disqualified." Ryoun suddenly felt that practicing an interview in the middle of the station was incredibly embarrassing. But Haein pointed out that hardly anyone was around at this hour, so he reluctantly agreed to give it a try. Ryoun straightened his back and kept his eyes firmly fixed on Haein. Although they had not known each other for long, this was the first time she had seen such a serious expression on his face. Looking at him now, Haein thought this must be what Ryoun looked like when he was giving it his all. Perhaps when he attended a real interview, he would face it with the same serious attitude and give it his absolute best. The thought suddenly made her curious to see him wearing business casual clothes, with his hair neatly slicked back for an interview. Pretending to be serious, she began the interview. "Now answer the question properly. When was the last time you kissed someone?" Ryoun immediately jumped to his feet. No company would ask something that personal. But Haein calmly replied, "Some companies prefer unconventional questions." "You failed this interview," Ryoun joked. "I'm reporting your company to the authorities. This place is completely unprofessional." Haein lowered her head and thought for a moment. Then, she said, "Still, you followed all my instructions, so I'll pay you an interview fee." With that, she began searching through her bag. A moment later, she handed Ryoun a small purple piece of plastic and told him it was her lucky charm. Looking closer, he realized it was an electric guitar pick. Haein said, "As long as you carry this lucky charm, you won't make any mistakes. It even has marks from all the times I've practiced with it. With this, you'll be able to get a job no matter where you interview." Ryoun closed his hand tightly around the pick. "No matter where I go for an interview, I'll make sure to bring it with me." Haein tilted her head and gave him a gentle smile. Meanwhile, Sung Hyun-jae was working late on a new song when a message suddenly appeared on his phone. To his surprise, Shin Haein had finally replied. She said she wanted to interview him first before deciding whether to collaborate. So that was how she described an in-person meeting. The artist known as Endless Afternoon really was unusual. The next morning, Haein arrived outside the office building at the agreed location, only to realize she had forgotten which floor the studio was on. Just then, someone asked, "Are you Endless Afternoon?" It turned out Hyun-jae had already been waiting downstairs. He politely introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Song Hyun-jae. Was this place difficult to find?" Haein replied, "Not really. I found it quickly by following the map. But all the alleys around here look similar, so it was a little confusing." Hyun-jae glanced behind her. "Did you come alone? When we talked online, you mentioned having band members. Didn't they come with you?" Haein explained, "I usually work alone. The other members only come in when I need help recording or arranging." Hyun-jae said, "So it's almost like a one-person band?" Haein nodded. "Exactly. Everyone else has their own projects in different places, and our drummer is still a college student." "I see. You perform as a band, but you're also essentially a solo artist. Let me take you upstairs. We can talk about everything else once we get there." While they were walking, Hyun-jae suddenly turned around. "What should I call you? I can't keep calling you Endless Afternoon forever." Haein replied, "My real name is Shin Haein. You can call me whatever you're comfortable with." "Then, how about Ms. Haein? The moment he said it, they both burst out laughing. After reaching the office floor, Hyunjae explained, "The company meeting room is being renovated, so we'll talk in my studio today." Hae-in looked around. "Does this entire building belong to you?" Hyunjae laughed. "I only rent a few offices here. I'm not some massive superstar. There's no way I could afford the whole building. But who knows about the future? I'm currently preparing to launch a record label. If it becomes successful enough, maybe I really will buy the entire building someday." Hae-in simply replied, "You're starting a record label? That's impressive." Hyunjae wondered why her reaction was so lukewarm. He had assumed she would be interested once he mentioned the label. Was she completely uninterested in the company he was creating? Or was she confident she could succeed entirely on her own? She really was an unusual person. It seemed she would not be easy to persuade. In reality, Hae-in was simply exhausted. She had stayed up all night writing music and wanted to finish the meeting quickly so she could sleep in the rehearsal room. Once they entered the studio, Hyunjae asked what she wanted to drink. "I have coffee, Coke Zero, beer, pretty much anything you want." Hae-in declined immediately. "No thank you. I don't need anything. I'd rather discuss the collaboration as quickly as possible." Hyunjae nodded. "Of course. We both made time in our busy schedules to meet, so every minute matters." He then pulled out a stack of documents. "Take a look through the contract. Feel free to ask me about anything." Hae-in accepted the papers and carefully read through them page by page. After a while, she said, "There's something I'm curious about, but I'm not sure whether I should ask. If we collaborate, will I have to appear at performances and promotional events under my real identity?" Hyunjae took off his hat. "That part doesn't matter. You can present yourself however you want, but there is one thing I need to make clear from the beginning. The reason I want to work with Endless Afternoon isn't because of your commercial value. I simply want to properly introduce such a talented artist to more people. And of course, I'm saying this as a sincere fan. I hope you understand that." Hyunjae then stood up and said, "Why don't we listen to the song I just wrote?" Hae-in stood behind him, carefully observing his every move. She had already decided that if he insisted on making her appear at performances, she would reject the offer immediately. But to her surprise, Hyunjae had accepted her condition without hesitation. Was he only acting considerate to secure the collaboration? Or was he genuinely thinking about what was best for her? Hyunjae turned around with a smile. "All right, I'm starting it now." The moment his fingers gently touched the keyboard, a beautiful melody filled the entire room. But the longer Hae-in listened, the more something felt wrong. "No way." She suddenly stood up and told Hyunjae to pause the track. Then, she angrily asked, "When you said collaboration, did you mean I'd only be playing accompaniments on a song you already finished?" Hyunjae looked confused. "Don't you think it already sounds good?" Hae-in replied, "The song sounds great, but this is supposed to be a collaboration. It can't only have your style, it needs mine too." She then told Hyunjae to get up, sat down at the computer, and tied back her hair. "First, I'm deleting every track we don't need." "Why are you so attached to this stuff?" What she did not know was that Hyunjae had spent 3 full days and nights searching for those samples. In truth, Hae-in knew the song was already nearly perfect, with almost nothing to criticize. Changing it carelessly could easily ruin its balance. But the people who loved her did not only love the songs she created, they also loved her distinctive musical style. So if this song was going to carry the name Endless Afternoon, she refused to abandon what made her music unique. Hyunjae watched as Hae-in removed the unnecessary tracks and gradually infused the song with her own style. He had known that her music was heavily influenced by shoegaze and post-rock, but he never imagined she could create something with this kind of sound. She had not sacrificed her identity to fit the song. Instead, she blended her style into it naturally and gave the track a personality that was unmistakably her own. She truly was a fascinating artist. Hyunjae had a strong feeling that their collaboration was going to sound incredible. Just then, he leaned toward Hae-in and asked, "Want me to grab you a beer?" Hae-in nodded. "Sure. And please finish writing the lyrics for the first verse, because I'm completing the entire arrangement today." Before long, night had fallen. Meanwhile, Ryowin was still working hard on a report in the library. He had no idea whether it would pass. The evidence supporting his argument still felt too weak. "I should take a break before continuing. I've been writing for so long that I'm exhausted." So Ryowin stepped outside to stretch and move around. Once his midterms ended in mid-April, his schedule should finally become more manageable. He still needed to prepare for a career aptitude test and attend several job fairs. He already had more work than he could possibly handle, but none of that stopped him from wanting to drink with Hae-in again. The only problem was finding a night when both of them were free. Just then, a notification suddenly appeared on his phone. Ryo-eun pulled it from his pocket in confusion. What's this? Didn't I put this thing on silent? Good thing it didn't make any noise inside the library. But why was the app recommending something like this to him? After finishing another long day, Ryo-eun arrived at the subway station and found Hae-in already waiting for the train. She was even using her waiting time to work on music. Ryo-eun quickly called out to her. Hae-in removed her Bluetooth earbuds and looked up at him. He then showed her the recommendation he had received earlier that day. Let's hold our own listening party. Hae-in stared at Ryo-eun with a puzzled expression. What exactly is this? I've never heard of anything like it, Ryo-eun explained. It's kind of like watching a movie together. Everyone gathers to listen to a new song and then shares their thoughts. I only recently found out that listening parties like this even existed. A friend once took me to one where the singer actually attended in person. After everyone listened to the song, the artist explained what she had been feeling while singing it, and how she came up with the lyrics. It was honestly an amazing experience, so I thought we could hold our own little listening party. Endless Afternoon is releasing a new song on April 28th. Come over to my place and we can listen to it together. But Hae-in asked, what's the point if Endless Afternoon won't be there? The whole reason those events are special is because the artist explains the story behind the song. Ryo-eun realized she had a point, but quickly added, we can still have fun together. We could even have a few drinks. Hae-in gave him a knowing look. So after all that, what you're really looking forward to is drinking with me again. Did she seriously think he was that obsessed with alcohol? Ryo-eun protested. That's not it. What I'm really excited about is Endless Afternoon's new song. Of course, he did need some kind of excuse to invite Hae-in over, and Hae-in could clearly see exactly what was going through his mind. She said, let me check whether I'm free that day. With that, she opened the calendar on her phone. Unfortunately, she was already scheduled to record the collaboration track that night. The 28th might not work. I'll probably be recording at the studio until very late. The disappointment on Ryo-eun's face was immediate. Then I guess it can't be helped. But the next second, Hae-in said, I'll see if I can rearrange things. There's still some time before the 28th. Ryo-eun quickly replied, don't worry about it. It was only a random idea I came up with on the spot. That was what he said. But his expression had already given him away. He looked exactly like a puppy that had just been told it could not go for a walk. Hae-in found herself conflicted. She had finally managed to coordinate the recording schedule with the other band members, so delaying it again would be difficult. After a moment, she placed a hand on Ryo-eun's shoulder. Let's have drinks another day. Friends don't need a special reason to drink together. Once your midterms are over, we can go have a drink. Ryo-eun immediately brightened up. He never expected Hae-in to be the one who invited him this time. A few days later, after weeks of preparation, Ryo-eun finally reached the day of his midterm exams. Once he finished the final subject, he could finally breathe again. As long as he submitted his assignments the following week, he would be able to relax for a while. The exam covered so much material that it had completely exhausted him. Just then, one of his classmates came over and invited him to celebrate. Ryo-eun could only apologize. I have a part-time shift today, so I really can't go. His classmate insisted that everyone from the club would be there and told him to take the day off. But Ryo-eun remembered that he had already called out once the previous week, so he had no choice but to go to work. More importantly, today was the day Endless Afternoon was releasing her new song. Their listening party may have fallen through, but even if he had to listen alone, Ryo-eun was determined to fully enjoy the new track and not miss the happiness he had been waiting for. Ryo-eun waved goodbye to his classmate and wished everyone a great time. Endless Afternoon's new song had already been released at 4 that afternoon, but he wanted to wait until he got home from work so he could listen to it properly, in peace. He could barely contain his excitement just thinking about it. Even while working at the cafe, he was overflowing with energy. Despite getting off work late, Ryo-eun remained in a great mood throughout the subway ride home. The moment he arrived, he quickly set down his backpack and sat on the couch with his phone. I can finally listen to it properly. I wonder what kind of masterpiece she made this time. Just then, his stomach suddenly growled. Ryo-eun realized that he had been so excited that he had forgotten to eat dinner. He had eaten a few snacks from his boss at the cafe, but he was still starving this late at night. It had been a long time since he ordered a late-night meal, and since he had recently been paid, he decided to treat himself to some fried chicken. He even left a note, asking the delivery driver to leave the food outside, allowing him to take a shower without worrying. Ryo-eun happily hummed a song as he showered, but after a moment, he suddenly froze. Why was Hae-in's voice the only thing filling his mind? Today was supposed to be an exciting day. So, why did everything suddenly feel so lonely without her there? Just then, the doorbell began ringing repeatedly. Ryo-eun frowned in confusion. What's going on? Did the food arrive already? I told them to leave it outside, so why do they keep ringing the bell? He hurriedly got dressed and ran to the door without even drying his hair. As he opened it, Ryo-eun said, I clearly left a note when I ordered. But halfway through his sentence, he realized the person outside was not the delivery driver. It was Shin Hae-in, and Ryo-eun could hardly believe his eyes. He immediately became flustered. What are you doing here? But Hae-in looked equally surprised. Weren't you the one who invited me to your listening party? Ryo-eun replied, but you said you had plans. I thought you couldn't come. Hae-in answered, I wanted to join the listening party, so I came early. She then raised the bag in her hand. I even brought a bottle of good liquor. Ryo-eun stared at her in disbelief before quickly taking the bag. Come inside. I only just got home too. Hae-in suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. Do you always dress like this when you're home alone? As she spoke, she pointed directly at Ryo-eun. He looked down and finally realized that he had rushed outside, wearing nothing but a pair of shorts. Mortified, Ryo-eun immediately ran back into his room to put on some proper clothes. Hae-in realized he must have been showering earlier. No wonder he had not opened the door despite all her ringing. Ryo-eun hurriedly pulled on a pair of pants, but his mind was still in complete chaos. Hae-in had shown up at his apartment without even warning him first. Worse still, the room was a mess and he had not even taken out the trash. What was he supposed to do? Just then, Hae-in walked over and asked whether she could borrow another set of clothes like last time. She wanted to shower before they started drinking, and she began taking off her coat as soon as she said it. Ryo-eun instantly froze. But Hae-in casually walked into the bathroom, as if she had been there a million times, and turned on the shower. From outside, Ryo-eun could clearly hear her quietly humming while she washed. He did not waste any time either, and immediately began cleaning the apartment in a panic. He could not believe she still remembered his address. She had left without saying a word last time, yet somehow remembered the route perfectly. Would she start doing this in the future too? Showing up at his apartment without any warning? If so, he would have to clean at least a little every day. He absolutely could not let the place start smelling weird. Just then, Ryo-eun heard Hae-in calling him from inside the bathroom. She reached one hand through the gap in the door and asked him to pass her a towel. Ryo-eun only dared to glance over for a second, before quickly turning away to find one. But where had he put the towels? And it had to be a clean one. He immediately began rushing around in a panic. After finally finding one, he quickly handed it to her. Then he wondered why he was acting so nervous. He had only passed her a towel. He hurriedly pulled out his phone to distract himself, forcing his mind to calm down. A short while later, Hae-in stepped out of the bathroom wearing an extremely oversized shirt. But it was so large that whenever she moved, it looked as though it might slip straight off her shoulders. With no other choice, Ryo-eun brought out the sweats she had worn last time. It was still too big, but at least it would stay in place once she zipped it up. After changing, Hae-in waved the long sleeves around. Your shoulders are seriously broad. This looks incredibly loose on me. Ryo-eun then asked, how did you finish so early today? I thought you said you had to stay late for a recording session. Hae-in smiled and explained that she had been in unusually good form that day, so the recording had gone much faster than expected. During the session, she had told the staff, keep the take I just recorded, but I want to sing it one more time. Start the track from the chorus. Use the previous take for the verse. I'll record another one, so we have extra material for the mix. Even the band leader noticed how unusually fast she was recording. Normally, she refused to stop until everything sounded perfect, and would demand take after take. He could not help wondering whether she was just phoning it in, because it was not her own song. But bassist Lim Ji-won replied, we'll know whether she was phoning it in once we hear the finished track. But to everyone's surprise, the finished take was flawless, just like always. Just then, Hae-in stepped out of the recording booth. I'm done with my part. Is there anything else you want me to adjust? The other members all gave her a thumbs up, saying her performance had been perfect. Since they had finished early, someone suggested going out for a celebration. But Hae-in quickly declined. I already have plans tonight. Once the mixing is done, you can all head home together. We can celebrate another time. The drummer already left early anyway. Great work, everyone. I'm heading out first, so get home safely. The remaining members exchanged confused looks. They had been looking forward to celebratory drinks, especially since the new song had been released that day. Had Hae-in gotten a boyfriend? It turned out she had even skipped the celebration just so she could finish recording early. Hae-in explained to Ryo-eun that no one could predict exactly when a recording session would end, so studios usually booked plenty of extra time. Sometimes they simply finished ahead of schedule. Ryo-eun said, "I see. Hearing about it like this makes the whole process sound amazing." Just then, Hae-in pulled a bottle of whiskey from her bag. "Before we listen to Endless Afternoon's new song, let's have a drink. You treated me last time, so this one's on me. Don't worry, it wasn't anything too expensive." With that, she raised her glass, and the two of them toasted the release of Endless Afternoon's new song. Maybe Ryan was too excited, because he downed the entire glass of whiskey in one gulp. A burning sensation instantly rushed through his chest. Hae-in stared at him in shock. "Wait, you drank the whole thing at once?" Ryo-eun asked, with a flushed face. "Was I not supposed to?" Hae-in was only worried that he would get drunk too quickly. But Ryo-eun remembered drinking whiskey before, and he had never gotten drunk this easily. Hae-in checked the time on her phone. It should be time to start the listening party. Since it's already late, let's listen on our own phones. Endless Afternoon's new song was titled Blue Kite. They put on their earbuds and agreed to press play at the exact same time. The moment Ryo-eun tapped the play button, the entire room fell silent. As Hae-in listened to her own song, she slowly became lost in thought. She had already heard it hundreds of times throughout the recording and mixing process. It would be a lie to say she had never grown tired of it, but listening quietly like this brought back all the struggles she had faced while creating it. Her heart was filled with countless broken fragments, and part of herself had been sealed inside this song. Very few people were willing to truly listen to music like this. There probably was no one else quite like Lee Ryo-eun. She never expected him to listen to her songs with such sincerity. She only wished he could like her a little more too. But just then, tears suddenly welled up in Ryo-eun's eyes, leaving Hae-in completely stunned. She instinctively reached out to wipe them away. But her sudden movement startled Ryo-eun. He quickly explained, "The lyrics just hit me really hard. This song is incredible, especially the lines. Even if I force myself to fly high enough to meet your eyes, I still can't reveal how I feel. And today, I'm becoming a little more like you. It feels like the song was written about me. I couldn't stop myself from tearing up." Ryo-eun then asked Hae-in what she thought of the song. Hae-in forced herself to answer calmly. "It's good. The guitar sounds beautiful, and the melody is nice too." But inside, her mind was in complete chaos, and she had no idea how to react. When she had first heard about the listening party, she had found the idea embarrassing and wanted nothing to do with it. But now, she wanted nothing more than to drink until she forgot everything. At that moment, Lee Ryo-eun quietly stared at Shin Hae-in. His mind suddenly felt completely out of control. Was it because of the strong whiskey? Or had he simply become lost in the music? As he looked at Hae-in's flushed cheeks, he felt an overwhelming urge to pull her into his arms. Were these his genuine feelings, or merely a reaction created by the whiskey and the music? The next day, Hae-in returned to the music studio and threw herself back into creating. As she looked over the artwork she had just finished, she wondered whether she should upload a new post. But while she was deep in thought, a man suddenly appeared behind her and startled her. He gave her a puzzled look. "Why are you so surprised? After you left yesterday, Sung Hyun-jae asked me to check with you. He wants to know whether we should make a music video for the collaboration track. It could be styled like a virtual singer cover video. You wouldn't have to fully show your face. Editing and stage effects could handle most of the performance." Hae-in thought that things were becoming more complicated exactly as she had expected. From the beginning, she had wanted nothing to do with anything beyond producing the actual song. After thinking for a moment, she simply said she would consider it. Meanwhile, Ryo-eun suddenly felt a dull ache in his arm while heading to his part-time job. Still, the previous day had been surprisingly eventful and fulfilling. When he arrived at the cafe, he changed into his uniform and prepared to take over the evening shift. But his coworker told him, "The boss can't come in today. She started feeling sick and left early. It looks like she suddenly came down with a really bad cold." She had been shivering since the start of her shift, and when she went to the hospital, they found out she had a high fever. Ryo-eun immediately became worried and decided to call his boss once things calmed down. He told his coworker, "You should go home. Working alone until now must have been exhausting." But she smiled and said she planned to stay and help him through the evening shift. The cafe was unusually busy that night, and fortunately, she stayed to help. Otherwise, Ryo-eun would never have managed everything alone. Even so, he could not stop worrying about his boss. During a quiet moment, Ryo-eun called her and asked whether she was feeling any better. She was still lying in the hospital. The doctor said she had pushed herself too hard, and she was currently on an IV. She admitted that she had spent the previous night binge-watching a show while drinking heavily, only to end up making herself sick. Even from her hospital bed, she was still worried that Ryo-eun might be overwhelmed at the cafe. Ryo-eun glanced back at Won Shin-young, who was still working hard, and said, "Shin-young stayed after her afternoon shift to help me." His boss sounded shocked. "Then she's basically working 2 shifts in a row. That has to be exhausting." Ryo-eun lowered his voice and replied, "I told her the same thing, but she said she's currently taking a break from college and has nothing else to do during the day, so she doesn't mind." His boss replied, "That's still too much work. Don't worry, I'll make sure both of you receive proper overtime pay. Close the cafe early tonight. Once I finish a few more tests, I'll stop by the shop." After ending the call, Ryo-eun felt relieved. His boss still sounded energetic enough, so it seemed it wasn't anything serious. Just then, Won Shin-young turned around and asked, "How is the boss doing?" Ryo-eun replied, "She said you'll be paid properly for the overtime, but working this many hours is exhausting. Don't push yourself too hard. Still, we've been getting a lot of dine-in customers at night lately, and I probably can't handle everything alone." To his surprise, Shin-young raised her fist and declared, "I may look fragile, but I'm actually really strong. I've been tough ever since I was a kid." Fortunately, she was friendly and energetic, so working alone together never felt too awkward. Ryo-eun said, "I'll take out the trash and check around outside while I'm at it. Leave the garbage bins to me." But just as he was about to turn away, he noticed that Shin-young still seemed to have something to say. She asked, "The boss told me you're a senior in college, so you must be older than me, right?" "I'm 23. Ryo-eun awkwardly scratched his head. "Could you watch the counter for a while? I'll go handle the trash." He carried 2 large bags of garbage outside, breathing heavily by the time he reached the dumpster. He had not expected Shin-young to be so approachable. They had only worked together for 1 day, yet he felt something he could not quite explain. It reminded him of the past. Back then, he never knew how long a relationship would last, or whether they would continue seeing each other. Even after growing closer, the other person somehow still felt unfamiliar. Were people constantly measuring and adjusting the distance between them, all for the sake of keeping a relationship alive? Just then, Shin-young suddenly shouted from inside the cafe, "We have a disaster." The delivery order had come in for 15 drinks and sandwiches, and she urgently called Ryo-eun back to help. An order for 15 sandwiches at this hour felt almost like an absolute nightmare. And to make matters worse, every single drink was different. With no other choice, the 2 of them immediately divided the work. Trouble truly came all at once. They were almost ready to close, yet an incredibly complicated order had appeared out of nowhere. Fortunately, Shin-young had stayed behind to help. Ryo-eun had been worried at first since she had only worked there for 2 months, but she handled everything efficiently. More importantly, she was responsible and incredibly reliable. Thanks to their teamwork, they finally completed the entire order. Once it was over, Ryo-eun felt completely exhausted, and the number of dine-in customers was still increasing. Even though her shift was finished, Shin-young offered to stay and help with the closing tasks. Ryo-eun joked, "The boss doesn't want to reimburse your taxi fare, so she told you to hurry home." But Shin-young explained that she lived just down the road and did not need a taxi. With that, she waved goodbye. Ryo-eun reminded her to be careful on the way home, then began cleaning up and preparing to close the cafe. But just then, Hae-in suddenly appeared in his thoughts for no apparent reason. They had spent so much time together, yet Ryo-eun still had no idea how old she was. When he arrived at the subway station, the first thing he did after seeing her was ask her age. Hae-in answered with a perfectly serious expression, 39. Ryo-eun instantly froze. "Are you messing with me again?" Hae-in laughed. "Of course, I can't believe you actually fell for it. Do I really look 39? Ryo-eun replied, "If you are, then your baby face is honestly unbelievable. But is your real age supposed to be some kind of secret?" Hae-in asked, "Why are you suddenly so curious about my age? Are you investigating me? Not knowing my age doesn't really change anything, does it?" Ryo-eun turned away. "You're right, it doesn't affect our conversations. I shouldn't have asked." Seeing his reaction, Hae-in wondered whether she had sounded too harsh. She had only meant to tease him a little, so she said, "I can tell you, but you have to promise me one thing first. From now on, call me Miss Hae-in. I actually like it when you call me that, even though it does sound a little awkward." Ryo-eun turned toward her and asked, "Miss Hae-in, may I ask how old you are? Are we the same age?" Hae-in lowered her head and quietly replied, 21. Ryo-eun froze. He could not believe he was actually 4 years older than her. It made no sense. Haein was already working full-time, and most people were at least 22 by the time they graduated from college. How could she only be 21? It turned out that Haein had never attended college. She had started working as soon as she became an adult. When she saw the disbelief on his face, she even offered to show him her ID. So when she had mentioned someone still being a college student before, she had been talking about the drummer, not herself. But how had someone so young become so skilled at making whiskey bombs? Had her uncle taught her that too? Just then, the train slowly pulled into the station. Haein suddenly placed an arm around Ryeon's shoulder. Anyway, we already made a deal. You're never allowed to change what you call me. Do you understand, older brother, Ryeon? Maybe because Haein had entered the workforce at such a young age, she spoke and acted with unusual maturity, and seemed far more experienced than most people her age. Ryeon had always assumed she was either his age or even older. He never imagined she was actually 4 years younger than him. That evening, the cafe was unusually crowded. His boss had returned to work even though she had not fully recovered, but before long, she was already exhausted. She even said she needed to get a massage before coming in the next day. Ryeon told her to rest more, but she insisted that the cafe was too busy for her to stay home. It seemed that money was the only thing on her mind. Just then, she suddenly asked, "What do you think of Won Shin-young? She's only been working here for 2 months, but she's genuinely good at the job. She's cheerful, so she's great at dealing with customers. She still gets flustered sometimes, but that's only because she hasn't memorized every recipe yet. She's still new, so that can't be helped." Then, his boss added, "Still, I'm really glad you're here. Without you, I'd never be able to rest without worrying. You're the only person I trust enough to leave the cafe to." Ryeon looked confused. "Why are you suddenly telling me all this?" Instead of answering, she asked whether he was busy on his next day off. Ryeon told her he had nothing special planned. She immediately said, "Then let's go eat Korean barbecue together. Consider it a small thank you. You've been through a lot these past few days." Ryeon asked, "Is that why you suddenly want to buy me barbecue? In that case, just give me a cash bonus instead. The more, the better." His boss grabbed his arm. "I already paid you overtime, you money-obsessed brat. Just keep me company for once. I really want barbecue." Ryeon replied helplessly, "If you want it that badly, why not grill some at home?" To his surprise, she clung to his arm and began whining. "No, I want to eat at a restaurant. Eating barbecue alone is way too depressing. If you eat and wash dishes alone every day, you'll eventually become miserable. Besides, luxury like this is meant to be enjoyed together. So you're coming with me. It's settled." Before Ryeon could respond, she had already made the decision for him. After thinking about it, Ryeon realized he did not have anything especially important to do. So he asked, "Have you already picked a restaurant?" But the moment he asked, his boss turned and walked away, telling him to watch the counter. Just then, Song Hyun-jae arrived at the cafe. He was listening repeatedly to the song he had created with Haein. In his opinion, the studio engineer's mix had an extremely polished overall sound, while the version personally mixed by Miss Haein was equally impressive. Her mix was slightly rougher, but it had far more personality. Endless Afternoon's signature vintage mood and distinctive sense of space could be felt throughout the entire track. He loved both versions so much that he could not decide between them. He wanted to return to the studio and listen again through professional monitor speakers. Just as Song Hyun-jae removed his Bluetooth earbuds, he heard the rapid clicking of a camera behind him. He glanced behind him out of the corner of his eye. Being secretly photographed was always a little awkward. It was not the first time this had happened, but it was the first time someone had done it inside a cafe. Instead of taking pictures from a distance, the person could have simply walked over and asked for a photo together. Still, Hyun-jae did not want to cause a scene, so he decided to leave quietly. But just then, the cafe owner rushed over to the person. "Excuse me, you are not allowed to secretly photograph other customers." Startled, the person quickly defended himself. "I wasn't photographing some ordinary customer. He's a celebrity. He's on television." The owner replied firmly, "Whether someone is an ordinary person or a celebrity, once they enter my cafe, they are my customer. So please stop doing that." The person snapped back, "What about me? I'm a customer too. Is this how your staff treats customers?" The owner coldly asked, "Are you really a customer? You haven't ordered a single thing since you walked in." "Normally, I don't bother people who sit here without buying a drink. But I can't stand by while you make another customer uncomfortable. So if you don't plan on ordering anything, could you please leave?" The person angrily threatened, "I'll give this place terrible ratings on every delivery app. I'll post about you all over social media and destroy this cafe. Do you understand?" But the owner simply replied, "Thanks for the free publicity. Have a safe trip home." Just then, Hyun-jae walked over. "I'm sorry. The cafe became noisy because of me. The owner smiled. It's fine. Cafes deal with difficult customers all the time. It's just part of running a business. So don't worry about it. And please come again. By the way, do you really like cappuccinos? Hyunjae looked at her in surprise. Then he replied sincerely, I've been to plenty of cafes, but this place makes the best cappuccino. After Hyunjae left, the owner reminded Ryo-eun about their barbecue plans and told him to meet her outside the cafe at exactly 7. So when the time came, Ryo-eun headed to the cafe. As he walked, he checked his phone and suddenly remembered that summer internship applications would be opening soon. Yet he still had not decided which companies to apply to. But then he reconsidered. There was no point worrying about work while he was supposed to be relaxing. Especially when there was still plenty of time. He only needed to follow the plan he had already prepared instead of putting too much pressure on himself. As long as he stayed on track, things would eventually work out. A moment like this was perfect for listening to Endless Afternoon. Her latest song matched his taste completely and felt incredibly comforting. Just then, Ryo-eun noticed an unfamiliar recommendation on his screen. What's this? I don't think I've seen it before. It was Endless Afternoon's album cover, and her song had even been featured on an indie music recommendation playlist. At that moment, his boss called out from behind him. Why are you here so early? Ryo-eun turned around in confusion and found Won Shin-young standing beside her. Was she coming with them too? His boss explained. She worked hard that day too, so I decided to bring this girl along for barbecue. Shin-young shyly greeted Ryo-eun, and he awkwardly greeted her back. Then, the two women excitedly shouted, Let's go have a beef barbecue feast. Our goal tonight is to eat an entire cow. We rarely get to treat ourselves like this, so no one is going home until we're completely full. Just then, someone suddenly grabbed Ryo-eun's arm. He turned and saw Shin-young holding tightly onto him with both hands. She shyly said, It's been a really long time since I had Korean barbecue too. But her sudden closeness left Ryo-eun completely embarrassed. For some reason, a strange chill even ran down his back. He had only come out to eat barbecue, so why was Shin-young suddenly clinging to his arm like this? Meanwhile, back at the music studio, Hae-in was still carefully revising her song. She hummed the melody over and over, repeatedly adjusting every small detail. But nothing seemed to work. Was there something wrong with the rhythm? Or was she simply too hungry to concentrate? At the same time, the barbecue restaurant was surprisingly packed. The cafe owner was happily enjoying the grilled meat, while constantly urging Ryo-eun and Shin-young to eat more. Just then, she called the server over and ordered another bottle of soju. Ryo-eun could not understand her. Hadn't she ended up in the hospital last time because she drank too much? Why was she drinking again already? But his boss simply laughed. It's fine. Haven't you heard the saying? Sometimes you have to fight poison with poison. Ryo-eun could only warn her not to overdo it. If she collapsed again, there might not be anyone around to take care of her. Sitting beside them, Shin-young tilted her head. You two seem really close. Did you know each other before working together? His boss replied, We've just worked together for a long time. We also go out to eat alone sometimes, like today. He lives by himself, and I'm single, so we often hang out together on our days off. Shin-young nodded in realization. I see. So are you two dating? Ryo-eun was so startled that he spat out the food in his mouth. He immediately turned toward her. What are you talking about? We're only having dinner together. But his boss suddenly added, Technically, I'm the one pursuing Lee Ryo-eun. Then she teased him. He acts so hard to get, like he's some priceless treasure. Ryo-eun quickly told her to stop making up ridiculous stories. Their conflicting reactions left Shin-young completely confused, and she had no idea which one to believe. After a moment, she asked, Ryo-eun, do you live alone? From what you said, I'm guessing you're not dating anyone right now. Ryo-eun confidently confirmed that he did not have a girlfriend, but admitted that there was someone he liked. Shin-young immediately leaned closer. Really? Who is she? Do I know her? Is it the morning shift girl? But Ryo-eun replied, I say I like her, but I don't even know her phone number. If you asked me what kind of relationship we have, I'd say she's someone I want to keep talking to. Meanwhile, back at the music studio, Hae-in continued revising her song. Something still felt wrong. Was the track too plain? Or did she need to restructure the chorus? Just then, the door suddenly opened. It was her uncle, who had come to ask what she wanted for dinner. Hearing her repeatedly humming, he asked, Are you practicing for a performance? Hae-in replied, I'm trying to figure out how to make this song flow more naturally. Her uncle looked surprised. So even you sometimes struggle with songwriting? I thought inspiration always came naturally to you. Hae-in said, I really want to make this song special, so I need to spend more time on it. Seeing the anxiety on her face, her uncle suggested, then why don't we go out for dinner and clear your head? I'll ask someone else to watch the studio. Let's go out and experience a little ordinary life. You might find inspiration when you least expect it. After finishing the barbecue, the three of them chatted as they walked home. The cafe owner was still enthusiastically sharing stories from her past, when she suddenly suggested going to a whiskey bar for another round. But Raeowin had class the next morning, and since it was already late, he declined. Shinyoung also claimed she had eaten too much and did not want to go. That did nothing to weaken the owner's desire to keep drinking. She told them to get home safely before heading to the bar alone. Watching her leave, Raeowin worried that if she continued like this, she would eventually collapse again. Just then, Shinyoung stepped closer and linked her arm through Raeowin's again. So where are we going now? Her question left him completely speechless. Before he could answer, she said there was a draft beer pub nearby that she often visited and invited him to have another drink with her. Raewon asked in confusion, "Didn't you just say you were too full?" Shinyoung admitted, "I only made that excuse because you weren't going with the boss. I actually wanted to talk with you a little longer." Raewon refused. "But it's already late, and we're both tired." Shinyoung suddenly asked, "Are you rushing off to meet the woman you like? You shouldn't take those feelings too seriously. You'll only end up getting hurt. For all you know, she might already have a boyfriend." Ryeon could not understand why Shinyoung was suddenly saying things like that. He quickly removed her arm from his and said, "Seriously, my feelings for her are genuine. When I fall for someone, I give them my whole heart. Even if I end up heartbroken and crying alone someday, I won't regret it." The moment he finished speaking, Shinyoung linked arms with him again. "I never knew you were such a sweet guy." Ryeon was completely helpless. Why did she keep clinging to his arm? People could easily misunderstand them. She was clearly drunk, but he had no intention of cleaning up the mess she might cause. Just then, Ryeon thought he spotted Shin Haein in the crowd. When he looked again, it really was her, and Haein seemed to notice him too. As they passed each other, Haein stared at Ryeon with a shocked expression, and he looked back at her with the exact same surprise. What was going on? Who was the man beside Haein, and why did he have an arm around her shoulder? Could he really be her boyfriend? Meanwhile, Haein was equally stunned when she saw Won Shin-young clinging intimately to Ryeon's arm. Even at work the next day, Ryeon could not stop wondering who the man from the previous night was, leaving him completely distracted. His boss suddenly shouted from behind him, "Is that customer's coffee ready yet?" Seeing how slowly he was moving, she snapped, "Are you making a drink or carving a sculpture, you master beverage artist?" Unable to watch him any longer, she told him to take out the trash and get some fresh air while he was outside. "And if you're still spacing out when you come back, I'm punching you. Got it?" To make matters worse, there was an unusually large amount of trash that day. Ryeon had no idea what was wrong with him. He could not focus on work, and he had not even managed to write a single line of his resume. It was all because of what he had seen the night before. Who was that man, and why had he placed his arm around Haein's shoulder so naturally? Could Ryeon's worst assumption actually be true? But Haein had clearly told him that she was not dating anyone. A sudden wave of anger surged through him, and he kicked over the garbage bag in front of him. The contents immediately spilled all over the ground. Why did he care so much? He was only creating unnecessary stress for himself. He had already promised himself that simply seeing Haein and talking with her occasionally would be enough. But without realizing it, he had begun to feel intensely possessive of her. Meanwhile, Haein was still working late at the music studio. Hyunjae approached and asked what she thought of the revised mix. After using her version as a reference, he had spent the entire night reworking the track. He had created another version that emphasized the second half more strongly, and he pulled out his phone to play it for her. But Haein replied listlessly, "Do whatever you want with it." Hyunjae stared at her in confusion. What was wrong with her today? He said seriously, "You can't work like this. No matter what kind of mood you're in, you still need to take the job seriously. If music were only a hobby to you, then being careless wouldn't matter. But many people have poured their effort into this song. If we treat it casually, all their hard work becomes meaningless. So we have to give it everything we have. Even if the song fails, I'll bear all the pressure as the producer." Hearing that, Haein realized she should not have allowed her personal emotions to affect her work. Hyunjae softened his tone. "Don't take it too personally. As the producer, I had to say those things. But I still want to ask what happened. You haven't seemed like yourself all day." Haein quietly replied, "Nothing special happened." But the very next second, her entire mood suddenly changed. She shot to her feet, as though all the emotions she had been suppressing had finally exploded. This is so frustrating. People's hearts are impossible to understand. Hyun-jae stared at her blankly. What are you talking about? Hae-in snapped. People always change. Someone can act like a sweet little puppy in front of you, then become a completely different person behind your back. I honestly believed he treated me well and would never lie to me. But in the end, I don't even have the right to question him. Hyun-jae replied, I don't know exactly what happened, but no matter who you're dealing with, you shouldn't let your emotions control you. A person's heart is like the stones beneath a river. You may be able to see them, but that doesn't mean you can see them clearly. I don't know what happened to you, and I'm not going to pry. But if I jump into a river believing it's deep, only to discover it's much shallower than I imagined, I'm the one who'll end up getting hurt. That's why you should only place a reasonable amount of trust in people. I prefer getting to know someone with low expectations, because expectations that are too high can distort who that person really is. Hae-in agreed with what Hyun-jae had said. No matter how much she expected from someone, they would never behave exactly the way she wanted. But she was still furious, and countless unspoken words churned inside her like boiling water. Worse still, she could not stop thinking about Ryeon's goofy face. The subway station was unusually quiet late that night. As usual, Lee Ryeon had not finished his shift until very late. The moment he saw Shin Hae-in, he quickly called out to her. But something about Hae-in seemed different. Instead of sitting on the bench like she usually did, she remained standing. Had she really gotten a boyfriend and decided she no longer wanted to talk to him? If that was true, Ryeon had no intention of continuing to bother her. Still, he wanted to ask her directly and clear up the question weighing on his mind, so he walked over to her. We need to talk. Hae-in stared at him in confusion, having no idea what was going on. Ryeon asked directly, do you have a boyfriend? Hae-in replied, didn't I already tell you? I don't. But I saw a man walking with his arm around your shoulders. Who was he? Hae-in thought for a moment. That was probably my uncle. Ryeon looked completely unconvinced. Come on, what kind of uncle looks that young? Are you lying because you think I'll actually believe you? To his surprise, Hae-in angrily shot back. What about you? Don't you have a girlfriend? I saw her clinging to your arm. Ryeon immediately remembered the night they went out for barbecue. She's just a younger coworker from the cafe. He never expected Hae-in to misunderstand and assume that he had been on a date with Won Shin-young. But no matter how much Ryeon explained, Hae-in refused to believe him. She even coldly said that continuing the conversation would only waste their time. Ryeon could not believe such a serious misunderstanding had formed between them. Just then, the station speakers announced the train was approaching. The most important thing now was finding a way to clear up the misunderstanding completely. Ryeon said firmly, I'll prove it to you. Meanwhile, cafe owner Oh Yoo-ju stopped by a convenience store to buy a can of beer so she would not get bored while watching a romance drama. But just as she was about to pay, she remembered that she had already drunk the night before and decided to skip it today. She had been drinking too much lately, and even her stomach was beginning to show it. Getting older really was depressing. Even with money, she could no longer eat and drink whatever she wanted without consequences. Just then, she heard someone shout from behind her, Boss. When she turned around, she saw Ryeon running toward her. He waved wildly as he approached. Yoo-ju asked in confusion, What are you doing here? Did you miss the last train? Ryeon replied, No, there's something I need to confirm with you. He then looked at Hae-in and introduced them. This is the owner of the cafe where I work. Hae-in politely nodded. It's nice to meet you. Yoo-ju introduced herself as well. I'm Oh Yoo-ju. As she looked at Hae-in standing beside Ryeon, she could not help wondering what was happening. Why had he suddenly brought a woman to meet her? Could this be the mysterious girl from the last train he had told her about? She was not quite the type Yoo-ju had imagined, but she was undeniably beautiful. Ryeon had clearly fallen for her. Just then, Ryeon stepped forward and asked, Boss, do you remember when we all went out to eat a few days ago? Yoo-ju replied, How could I forget? You, Shin-young, and I all went out for barbecue together. Ryeon said, I'm talking about the night we went out together. I need you to explain what kind of relationship Shin-young and I have. We're only co-workers. We just happened to eat together that night. Oh Yoo-ju immediately understood. Ryeon was worried that Hae-in had misunderstood their relationship. So she explained, They really are only co-workers. They see each other at the cafe every day, but the only time they actually talk is during the 10 or 15 minutes when their shifts overlap. Hae-in began wondering whether she had truly misunderstood Ryeon. It seemed the two of them were nothing more than ordinary coworkers, but she still said, I saw her linking arms with him so of course, I couldn't believe that right away. Yuju finally understood the source of the misunderstanding. So that's what bothered you. You probably don't know Won Xingyang very well. She's extremely friendly and naturally clingy. Whenever we work together, she's always hanging on to me too, Rayoin quickly added. She kept following me around that night and wouldn't stop linking arms with me. I pushed her away several times. After saying that, he immediately looked at Heian. You believe me now, right? Heian replied, since your boss personally confirmed it, I'll believe you this time. Rayo-un finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, Yuju offered to drive both of them home. The buses and subway had already stopped running, so she could give them a ride on her way back. Rayo-un was about to celebrate, but Heian immediately declined. That won't be necessary. She then turned toward him. There's somewhere else I need to take you. Your misunderstanding has been cleared up. Now it's my turn to prove myself. Rayo-un never expected things to develop this way. As Yuju prepared to leave, Heian suddenly bowed to her. I'm sorry for bothering you so late at night. She then grabbed his hoodie string and pulled him away with her. Even at this late hour, the rehearsal room inside the music studio still had its lights on. Heian's uncle, Shin Hyun-sung, was inside playing video games. Unfortunately, he was terrible at them and kept losing one match after another. Just then, the doorbell rang. He wondered who could possibly be visiting this late. When he opened the door, he found Heian standing outside. He asked in confusion, "Why are you here so late?" Heian immediately asked, "Uncle, I need to ask you something. I really am your niece, right?" Hyun-sung froze. Are you stupid? Why would you suddenly ask such a ridiculous question? Heian pointed toward Rayo-in behind her. This guy actually thought you were my boyfriend. Hyun-sung finally understood. So that's what this is about. Did I do something that could have caused a misunderstanding? Or is it because I look too young? Heian replied irritably. It happened when you had your arm around my shoulders that night. He saw us and assumed you were my boyfriend. Only then did Hyun-sung notice Rayo-in standing behind her. How did you even get such a ridiculous idea? Rayo-in could only scratch his head awkwardly. Once the misunderstanding was finally cleared up, Heian urged her uncle to go home and rest. But Hyun-sung asked, the buses and subway have stopped running. How are you two getting home? Heian replied, we'll figure it out ourselves. We can take a taxi or walk. Taxis are expensive at this hour, and it's far too long to walk. Are you seriously planning to go on foot? I'll drive you both home. Heian looked confused. But you don't own a car. Hyun-sung replied, I can borrow one. I can't just watch the two of you walk all the way home. I'll go get the car and call you when I'm ready. Come downstairs then. You two wait here for a little while, Heian said awkwardly. My uncle has always been the type of person who takes immediate action. But Rayo-in felt deeply ashamed. Thinking about it now, he never should have obsessed over the misunderstanding or waited this long to speak up. He had made Heian run around with him so late at night and caused her a lot of unnecessary trouble. Rayo-in cautiously asked, So, are we good again? Heian replied, Now that the misunderstanding is cleared up, of course we're still best friends. She suddenly held out her hand toward him. Rayo-in stared at it in confusion. What am I supposed to do? Heian asked, Didn't we just make up? Rayo-in laughed awkwardly. Oh, you want to shake hands? As he took her hand, he said sincerely, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I should have been the one to clear everything up first. Heian apologized as well, admitting that she should not have doubted him so easily. Just then, Heian seemed to notice something. She looked down at Rayo-in's hand and commented on how large his palm was. When they placed their hands together, hers looked much smaller by comparison. Rayo-in said in surprise, It's amazing that you can play guitar with hands this small. Can you really reach all the strings when changing chords? Heian covered her mouth and laughed. That's probably because you don't understand guitars. Their shapes and sizes are all different. And guitar isn't the only instrument I can play. I can play piano too. I'll show you next time if you don't believe me. Then she said, Let's go inside. It's getting cold out here. The two returned to the room and continued talking while they waited for her uncle. Rayo-in asked curiously, Does your uncle work at the music studio too? Is this basically a family business? Heian replied, Go rest on the couch. I'll see if there's anything to drink. As Rayo-in sat down, he looked around the room. Several band posters covered the walls, probably from the group Heian had mentioned her uncle playing in when he was younger. Then Rayo noticed a game console on the cabinet. It was a model he had always wanted, perhaps because every guy secretly dreams of owning one. Heian often talked about her uncle, so she had probably spent a lot of time there growing up. Rayo-in could not help wondering what her childhood had been like. Looking at her now, he imagined she must have been beautiful, even as a child, and had probably always been popular. Meanwhile, Hae-in searched the kitchen for something to drink and found the refrigerator packed with takeout food. In the end, she brought Reo-in a can of apple juice. He accepted it politely and said, "I'm really sorry for making you come all the way here this late." But Hae-in did not answer right away and simply kept staring at him. To ease the awkwardness, Reo-in quickly changed the subject. "You and your uncle seem really close. You feel less like an uncle and niece, and more like friends." It turned out that Hae-in's uncle had taken care of her for most of her childhood. She had an older brother, but there was a large age gap between them, and her parents were always busy working. Since they rarely had time for her, her uncle often stayed by her side and taught her how to play guitar. Hae-in laughed. "My uncle was incredibly handsome when he was younger. Now he's completely turned into an old man." With the misunderstanding finally behind them, the two returned to talking comfortably about everything. Just then, Hae-in said there was something she wanted to tell Reo-un. He became curious. Did she have another secret she had never shared before? Hae-in told him that she had once been betrayed by her friends when she was younger. When she first entered high school, she became close with several classmates almost immediately. But as she spoke, Reo-un noticed that something was wrong. Her hands had begun to tremble. He quickly reassured her, "You don't have to explain everything in detail. Only tell me what we're comfortable saying. Whenever you want to share the rest, I'll always listen." When Hae-in first started high school, she met several classmates who seemed interested in music. She taught them how to play guitar and constantly encouraged them to learn more about music. Every day, those girls gathered around her to listen to her sing and play. For a while, Hae-in believed they genuinely liked her and her music. On the surface, they pretended to help her, acted extremely close, and smiled while showering her with compliments. But behind her back, they insulted her, blamed her, and laughed at her. The truth was that they had always looked down on Hae-in. They mocked her for pursuing music, called her pretentious and talentless, and said she was ruining her own life. Because of that betrayal, Hae-in sometimes fell into anxious thoughts, constantly wondering what the people who approached her were truly thinking. Were they secretly laughing at her too? Reo-un never imagined that someone as bright and cheerful as Hae-in had endured something so painful. Afterward, Hae-in's uncle borrowed a car and drove her and Reo-un home. Noticing how quiet they were, he asked, "Why aren't either of you talking? Did you two have another fight?" Hae-in quickly changed the subject. "Uncle, who did you borrow this car from?" It turned out it belonged to the older bassist from his band. Looking around the spacious vehicle, Reo-un remarked that it seemed large enough to carry plenty of luggage. Her uncle suddenly asked Reo-un for his name, then wondered whether he had any travel plans coming up. It turned out he was going to work at a rock festival, and his invitation allowed him to bring 3 additional guests. Reo-un curiously asked Hae-in, "What is a rock festival like?" She explained that musicians from all over the country gathered for 3 days and 2 nights of live performances. People could drink, have fun, and even camp nearby. Her uncle would be attending as a staff member. If Reo-un wanted to join them, he could come along, as long as he told her uncle in advance. But after thinking about it, Reo-un remembered that he needed to prepare for job hunting and probably would not have much time to relax. Yet the moment he looked at Hae-in, his heart filled with longing, and he found himself wanting to run away with her to that summer rock festival. The next day, Reo-un arrived at the cafe and was surprised by how crowded it was. Seeing his boss rushing around, he quickly greeted her, but she smiled and asked, "Did you manage to get home safely last night?" The question immediately caught Reo-un off guard, and he fled into the break room to change into his uniform without even looking at her. When he returned to the counter, his boss handed him a drink. It was not even break time yet, so what was she doing? It turned out she had developed a new recipe and wanted Reo-un to taste it and give her feedback. Then she casually added that she also wanted some gossip and asked what had happened after she left. She insisted that after helping him so much, she had earned the right to hear at least a little of what happened next. Reo-un replied shyly, "Nothing special happened. We cleared up the misunderstanding and made up." But Wan Shin-yong suddenly appeared from behind them. "There's no way you made up that calmly. You probably argued first, then had to cheer her up." Reo-un stared at her. "Wasn't your shift already over? Why are you still here?" But Shin-young declared that she was not leaving until she heard the full story. Reo-un snapped, "You don't understand anything." He then warned her not to casually link arms with people anymore, since that kind of behavior could easily cause misunderstandings. Shin-young turned away impatiently. "I heard you." But just as she was about to leave, she suddenly remembered something she had forgotten to finish. She had received an order before their shift change but had not prepared it yet, so she asked Ryo-eun to handle it for her. She really was incredibly sneaky. To make matters worse, the order contained 4 different drinks. Ryo-eun rushed around by himself and barely managed to finish them as quickly as possible. When he handed them over, he apologized. "I'm sorry for the wait. Please accept these cookies on the house." The customer had waited so long that Ryo-eun nearly received a complaint, but fortunately, he managed to smooth things over. As he stood behind the counter, spacing out, Ryo-eun suddenly heard a customer say, "Arin, don't forget your coffee." His head immediately shot up. That name sounded far too familiar. Could it really be her? But when Ryo-eun saw the woman named Arin, he realized she merely happened to have the same name. His boss, who was standing nearby, asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Ryo-eun replied guiltily, "I heard a familiar name and thought it might be someone I knew, so I looked over." His boss said, "I thought something serious had happened. I'm going to the restroom, and when I get back, you better tell me everything that happened last night." But when Ryo-eun thought about it, it no longer mattered whether that woman had been Han Arin or not. He had no lingering feelings for her anymore. Hearing the familiar name had simply made him briefly remember the past. And when those old memories came rushing back, he had instinctively turned around. Just then, a customer called out to place an order, forcing Ryo-eun to throw himself back into work. Before he knew it, several more days had passed. After finishing another long shift, Ryo-eun arrived at the subway station to wait for the train. The cafe had been unusually crowded lately, leaving him completely exhausted every night. He still needed to stop by a convenience store on the way home and buy some food, or he would have nothing for breakfast the next morning. He was also out of toilet paper and needed shampoo and dish soap. The more he thought about it, the longer his shopping list became. But for now, he decided to rest for a while and visit the store later. Was he exhausted because too many things had been happening lately, or because preparing for internships had kept him constantly tense? He felt drained all the time, as though his energy could no longer keep up. Just as he drifted off, Hae-in lightly tapped him from beside the bench. Ryo-eun instantly woke up. Hae-in asked, "Did you just fall asleep?" Ryo-eun rubbed his eyes. "I only meant to rest my eyes for a moment, but I guess I actually dozed off. By the way, let me show you something interesting." He pulled out his phone. "This is an international music app I use. I found Endless Afternoon featured on the homepage." Hae-in looked as though she could hardly believe it. So Ryo-eun explained, "It's a playlist that recommends indie music from around the world, and Endless Afternoon was included." More people are finally starting to recognize her potential. If things keep going like this, maybe she'll really become popular. Hae-in tilted her head and continued staring at Ryo-eun. She claimed that she was simply admiring the expression on his face. Then she suddenly asked, "Do you always carry your phone with you?" Ryo-eun joked, "I even take it to the bathroom. What if I get locked inside?" But why had Hae-in suddenly asked him something like that? Had she recently heard some alarming news involving cell phones? Just then, the train slowly pulled into the station. After returning home, Ryo-eun immediately took a shower. Then he began organizing everything he had bought, determined to fill his empty refrigerator. He even carefully checked how each item needed to be stored. When Ryo-eun picked up a can of soda, he suddenly wondered whether Miss Hae-in would ever visit his apartment again. If she did, they could drink together once more. But then, something suddenly occurred to him. At the station, Hae-in had specifically asked whether he always kept his phone with him. Had she been hinting that he should ask for her phone number? Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. How did I only realize that now? Ryo-eun made up his mind. The next time they met, he would definitely ask for Hae-in's number first. Just then, a new notification appeared on his phone. Endless Afternoon had started a live chat stream. She had never done anything like that before. For that matter, she had never even posted a real photo of herself. What surprised Ryo-eun even more was that Endless Afternoon was also planning a live online performance. Earlier, Hae-in had been singing and playing her newly released song inside the rehearsal room, while the other band members carefully followed along. Even professional drummer Yoon Ju-young had joined the rehearsal this time. Once they finished, everyone agreed to preserve the same feeling during the official recording. Ju-young then asked, "When are we rehearsing the collaboration with Song Hyun-jae?" Lin Ji-won replied, "We'll run through it once at the studio the day before filming. It isn't a particularly difficult song anyway." As Hae-in began packing up her instruments, Ji-won walked over and asked why she had suddenly decided to live stream. After all, she had previously insisted that she would never appear in a live performance as Endless Afternoon. Lim Ji-won did not care whether the band performed on-site, as long as the schedules did not conflict, but he still wanted to know why Hae-in had suddenly changed her mind. Hae-in thought for a moment, and remembered what had happened while they were composing the collaboration track. Song Hyun-jae had explained many of the inspirations behind the song, and his words had helped her understand several things almost instantly. After all the revisions, the track sounded completely different from the version she had first heard. Hyun-jae had also explained that the mixing and mastering would be handled at a completely different studio. His own studio was designed around the genres he usually worked with, so it had certain limitations. So he handed the post-production over to a studio that specialized in rock music. Using Endless Afternoon's sound as a reference, they completed the entire process in only one day. The song was expected to go on sale sometime between late June and early July, as soon as the album cover was finished. One of the label's digital artists would also create a beautiful cover for the release. It was around that time that Hyun-jae asked Hae-in whether she wanted to try performing with him in a live stream. If they went ahead with it, they would use the pre-recorded and edited format he had mentioned before. He then pulled a tablet from his bag. The moment he showed her a stage photo, Hae-in was immediately captivated. It featured an Icelandic band called the Rose of Victory. At the beginning of their performances, they hung a large screen in front of the stage and projected visuals onto it. Hyun-jae wanted Hae-in to perform behind a similar screen during the live stream. Only her silhouette would appear, so her face would remain completely hidden. Hae-in kept staring at the photo because the Rose of Victory happened to be her favorite band. Under Hyun-jae's plan, they would simply use backlighting and project her shadow onto the screen. Hae-in asked, "Wouldn't something like this cost much more to produce than a normal live stream? And I don't understand why you're going this far. This isn't even part of your official album." Hyun-jae explained, "Because the song turned out so well, I want to put more effort into it. The fans also genuinely love the track. I can almost feel their emotions while they're watching the performance. Whenever I lose myself in that moment and finally step away from the stage, I feel both exhilarated and humbled. I don't want to disappoint those people, so I want to make the performance as good as possible. I'm only doing everything I can. Music can only truly exist when there are listeners willing to hear it. Of course, I also hope the song makes a lot of money. Revenue is important too. You only need to decide whether you want to participate by the end of this week." Hae-in had never expected Hyun-jae to care so deeply about his fans. She had assumed he was the kind of person who avoided communication and focused entirely on making music. His words reminded her of something Ryo-eun had once told her. Although she had never live-streamed before, she was beginning to understand what he had meant. So Hae-in finally made up her mind. She replied to Hyun-jae on the spot, telling him she was willing to participate. She wanted to create the live stream performance together with him. But since it was a collaboration, she also wanted to add her own concepts and ideas to the plan Hyun-jae had proposed. Once they confirmed the details, they agreed to announce the live stream date after all the preparations were complete. After Hae-in explained why she had decided to live stream, Lim Ji-won stared at her in disbelief. "I can't believe Song Hyun-jae was the one who finally convinced you. But are you really ready? This will be your first proper live performance. Even without a live audience, you'll still get nervous. The entire filming crew will be watching you. If you keep making mistakes, you'll only create more work for everyone else. Even if it's only a filmed live stream, you need to prepare properly." As Hae-in walked toward the subway station, she kept thinking about Ji-won's words. "I did live stream once in high school, but that was only for a talent show. Maybe I should ask my uncle to sit in front of me during the next rehearsal." Meanwhile, the moment Ryo-eun discovered that Endless Afternoon had gone live, he immediately pulled out his phone and entered the stream. There were not many viewers, and most of them appeared to be from other countries. Fortunately, he had not missed the performance. Although the screen initially showed nothing but the view outside, Hae-in was currently live streaming from her own home. Even though the room had soundproof wallpaper, it was already late at night, so every small noise seemed unusually loud. Hae-in wondered whether Ryo-eun had entered the stream too. But since she did not know his username, there was no way to confirm it. Still, she felt certain that he was watching. After all, this was Endless Afternoon's first true live performance. Before long, her beautiful voice began echoing through the quiet room, breathing alone between the stars, unable to reach your path, while the seasons move only through inertia. Hae-in sang the song again and again, pouring all her emotions into every line. Meanwhile, Ryo-eun was completely absorbed in the live stream. Even after the broadcast ended, he still wanted more and could not believe how quickly it had finished. "I should have recorded the screen. The replay hasn't even been uploaded yet. The only thing he could not understand was why Endless Afternoon had suddenly chosen to livestream now. Was she hinting at something? Or had she simply been bored? But when he remembered that she had pulled off the entire performance without a band, using nothing but a ukulele, Ryo-eun became so excited that he jumped to his feet. Endless Afternoon truly was an incredibly talented live vocalist. Just then, Ryo-eun suddenly wondered whether Hae-in had watched the live stream too. He hoped she had not missed it, because then they would have another new topic to discuss when they met. It would be such a waste to experience this happiness entirely by himself. But after ending the broadcast, Hae-in immediately began criticizing herself. She thought her pitch and timing had sounded strange, and that she had completely messed up the instrumentals. Singing in front of strangers still made her so nervous that her entire body trembled. She wondered whether other musicians had gone through the same experience during their first live stream. All she could do was hope that the imperfect performance had still left the viewers with a beautiful memory. After finishing work the next evening, Ryo-eun happily hummed a song as he headed toward the subway station. He was looking forward to seeing Miss Hae-in because if they met, they could finally talk about the livestream, and no matter what happened, he was determined to get her number that night. That way, even when they were both at home, they could still talk about Endless Afternoon and other music they loved. But as Ryo-eun walked forward, Hae-in suddenly tapped him from behind. He froze in shock. It turned out Hae-in had been quietly following him ever since he entered the station. Hae-in looked at Ryo-eun and asked, "Didn't you sleep well last night? You look exhausted." But Ryo-eun asked, "Miss Hae-in, didn't you watch Endless Afternoon's livestream?" Hae-in pretended to look confused. "Endless Afternoon went live? I went to bed early last night, so I must have missed it. That's such a shame. What did you think of the performance?" Ryo-eun lowered his head and thought about it carefully. Then he said, "Honestly, a few things felt a little strange. The phone microphone probably wasn't very good, and her voice sounded slightly too quiet." Hae-in never expected Ryo-eun to criticize the performance like that. But the next second he added, "Still, the livestream was genuinely amazing. It felt incredibly warm and intimate. And because she was singing late at night, she sounded so careful and restrained. It didn't feel like she was showing off her technique. It felt like she was singing only for me. Now I understand why people don't want to experience everything through music apps. Watching the stream felt like traveling all the way to see her perform live. I really hope she holds another live stream someday." Hearing that, Hae-in blushed and lowered her head. Ryo-eun then began searching through his bag for his phone. "Miss Hae-in, let's exchange numbers. Then I can tell you whenever Endless Afternoon goes live again, and we can talk about other music too." Hae-in hesitated for a moment. Then she said, "I can give you my number, but there's something I need to tell you first. Phone calls and messages make me a little anxious." Ryo-eun stared at her in disbelief. Is that what people call phone anxiety? It turned out that Hae-in felt uneasy because she could not see the other person's expression. She normally used her phone only for work or to speak with her parents, and text-only conversations made her even more uncomfortable than phone calls. Ryo-eun cautiously asked, "What about something simple, like sending a goodnight message? You finish work so late every day that I worry about whether you got home safely. After all, we almost always meet late at night after work." Hae-in rested her chin on her hand and thought about it carefully. Then she finally held out her phone and exchanged numbers with Ryo-eun. After returning home, Hae-in remembered that once the live recording for the collaboration track was finished the following week, she would be able to focus on Endless Afternoon again. She had also accumulated plenty of drafts for new songs. After cleaning up, Hae-in picked up her phone and wondered whether she should message Ryo-eun first. But just then, a notification suddenly appeared. Ryo-eun had sent, "Did you get home safely?" Then, Hae-in noticed that he had included a selfie too. He had apparently worried that a text-only message might make her uncomfortable, so he sent a picture of himself along with it. Hae-in could not help smiling. He really is an interesting guy. But he's absolutely terrible at taking selfies. Meanwhile, Ryo-eun kept holding his phone, anxiously waiting for Hae-in to reply. But to his complete surprise, Hae-in sent him a selfie of her own. As Ryo-eun looked at the photo, he could not help thinking about how beautiful she was. He continued, staring at the image on his screen, while his heart beat faster and a blush slowly spread across his face. Finally, Ryo-eun excitedly sent her a goodnight message, bringing their conversation to an end. After receiving Ryo-eun's selfie, Hae-in couldn't resist taking her phone out to look at it every now and then, even while walking. But no matter how many times she saw it, his selfie skills were still unbelievably bad. With photography like that, he could make anything look terrible. The next time they met, She would have to teach him how to take a proper selfie and make him send her another one once he learned. Just then, someone suddenly called out from behind her, "Hey!" Hae-in froze in shock. For some reason, this studio member managed to startle her every time they met. He told her to head straight to the rehearsal room because all the equipment had already been installed. Then he glanced back at her. "Why did you bring so many bags? Did you even bring clothes for the shoot?" Hae-in replied, "It's still an official shoot. I should at least look the part." Inside the rehearsal room, everyone was busily setting up the filming location. Song Hyun-jae had already arrived and was waiting for her. Hae-in walked over and greeted him. Hyun-jae told her to tune her instruments and remain ready because they would be conducting a sound check shortly. He then introduced the young woman beside him. "This is Yoonina, the director in charge of today's stage design and filming." Hae-in immediately bowed 90 degrees. "I look forward to working with you today." Hyun-jae smiled. "Make sure you impress Yina. She's a genuine genius when it comes to media art." Before filming began, Yina confirmed one final detail with Hae-in. "You definitely don't want your face shown in the video, correct?" Hae-in replied, "Correct. That has always been part of Endless Afternoon's style, so please make sure my face stays hidden." Yina immediately placed that requirement at the top of her filming checklist. Then she carefully looked Hae-in over. "What a shame. I know I shouldn't judge an artist by appearance, but your face would look incredible on camera. The video would turn out beautifully. Still, the silhouette stage, combined with my projected visuals, should look amazing. But if we could show your face during the live performance, the footage would be even more striking." Hae-in then stepped forward and asked Yina a question. She raised the orange bag in her hand. "I prepared a few things, but I'm not sure whether we can use them today." She opened the bag and asked Yina to check whether any of the items reflected too much light and might interfere with the filming. Just then, Hae-in put on a hat she had personally modified. She had made it specifically for the song ecosystem, hoping to create the feeling that nature itself was singing. The craftsmanship looked rather ordinary, but the concept was genuinely creative. Yina told her to bring it over so they could test it. The prop was not particularly well made, but since only its silhouette would appear on camera, it probably would not matter much. "Stand behind that screen. I'll turn on the lights and see how it looks." Hyun-jae walked over as well, curious whether the prop would actually work. Yina told him, "The quality is about the same as a child's party hat, but let's test it before deciding. You should watch too. It might be better if you give your opinion afterward." Behind the screen, Hae-in confidently lifted her guitar into her arms. The next second, her beautiful voice echoed throughout the rehearsal room. Everyone present was instantly captivated. From that angle, it almost felt as though they had been transported to a quiet forest. Hae-in completely lost herself in the performance. The moment the song ended, a powerful beam of light shone from behind her, creating a breathtaking image. Even Yina froze when she saw it. It was only a silhouette, yet the result looked surprisingly impressive. Yina then asked Hyun-jae to begin the sound check while she stepped outside for a cigarette. Sitting on the steps outside, Yina pulled out her phone and scrolled through the artwork on their profile. The act she had just seen was called Endless Afternoon, and nearly every post on their page featured beautifully drawn artwork. She already hoped they would release their first album soon. It had been a long time since an artist she had only just met had captivated her so deeply. It reminded her of the first time she discovered new age cinema in middle school. Even if there was little money and the work was exhausting, this was exactly how art was supposed to feel. It should pull people into another world and make their hearts race at the discovery of a gifted new artist. Meanwhile, the cafe was not particularly busy, so Reo-in carried a dessert into the break room and ate while looking at the selfie Hae-in had sent him. Honestly, she was incredibly beautiful. She was also remarkably photogenic, perhaps because her face was naturally so small. Reo-in had always known that Hae-in was an extremely attractive woman, but he still wanted many more photos of her like this. Just then, his boss walked in and told him that his break was over. She needed to check and order supplies, so she asked Reo-un to watch the counter. He only wished he could see Miss Hae-in again soon. But the moment he returned to the counter, a customer came over to place an order. Reo-un asked him to wait nearby and explained that the pickup buzzer would notify him once everything was ready. Just then, another customer walked up to the counter. When Reo-un raised his head, he found a painfully familiar figure standing in front of him. It was Han A-rin. He never imagined she would suddenly appear here. Reo-in asked nervously, "Why are you here? Weren't you working for a company in another city?" It turned out A-rin had recently changed jobs, and her new company was located in the building beside the cafe. She asked curiously, "When did you start working here? Are you already a junior in college?" But Ryo-eun had no desire to answer any of her questions. He simply urged her to place her order, reminding her that he could not chat while he was working. A-rin complained. "We haven't seen each other in so long. Why are you being so cold to me?" She then claimed she had only come to see his face and asked him to recommend the best drink in the cafe. Ryo-eun said most customers ordered the cranberry smoothie or the surprise yogurt smoothie. But A-rin immediately replied, "Aren't those the most expensive drinks here?" Growing impatient, Ryo-eun told her to choose anything she wanted because he still had other customers' orders to prepare. A-rin said, "Then I'll have hot chocolate. You still remember that, don't you?" "My taste hasn't changed since we were children." Ryo-eun turned away and answered coldly, "We went to school together years ago. I've already forgotten all of that." But A-rin smiled. "You still remembered where I started working. I know I hurt you back then, but treating me this heartlessly is still pretty upsetting." Ryo-eun replied, "We were both young at the time, and it happened many years ago." A-rin continued, "Then at least greet me the way you did when we used to hang out. Otherwise, I might actually cry." Perhaps because he no longer had any feelings for her. Ryo-eun barely heard a word she said and focused entirely on making the drink. A short while later, he called out, "Order 24. Your hot chocolate is ready. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your drink." A-rin accepted the drink and smiled. "What's with that expression? Are you still angry with me?" Ryo-eun snapped. "I already told you I can't chat while I'm working. You see my face, so leave. My boss is right behind me, and the cafe is full of customers. And stop coming here just to bother me." But before leaving, A-rin unexpectedly looked back and said she would return to drink another hot chocolate made by him. Ryo-eun only hoped she would never come back again. Yet after A-rin left, he could not calm himself down for a long time. He had honestly believed that he would never see her again, ever since what happened between them. Ever since A-rin abandoned him, Ryo-eun had never been able to let go of the pain completely. The memories he wanted to avoid were always the ones that returned most often. He almost wished 200 delivery orders would suddenly arrive and keep him so busy that he would have no time to think about any of it. Unfortunately, fate seemed determined to play a trick on him. From that day onward, orders began flooding into the cafe like crazy, leaving everyone so busy that they barely had time to stop. It was probably because festival season had begun, bringing in an unusually large number of group orders. Ryo-eun was completely exhausted that night. He planned to wash up quickly after getting home and wake up early to finish his assignments the next morning. Just then, Hae-in suddenly raised her phone and took a picture of Ryo-eun. He looked at her curiously and asked, "What are you doing? Why did you suddenly take a picture of me?" Hae-in smiled. "You just had a really great vibe, so I snapped a quick picture." She then held the phone in front of him and showed him the picture she had taken. Right after that, Hae-in asked Ryo-eun to hand over his own phone. He looked confused. "Why do you need my phone?" Hae-in replied, "Don't worry. No matter what kind of pictures you have in your gallery, I'll pretend I never saw them." Ryo-eun immediately protested, "I don't keep anything weird in my photo gallery." Then he handed her the phone. To his surprise, she only wanted to change his camera settings. Once she finished, she raised the phone and told him to look in her direction. She enabled the gesture shutter and switched to the rear camera. That was how the two of them took their very first photo together. Ryo-eun stared at it in amazement. "This picture turned out really well," Hae-in said. "From now on, take your pictures like this before sending them to me. You'll look much better on camera. And don't send me another strange photo like the one from last time. If your face is too close to the lens, the distortion makes it look puffy, like a loaf of bread. The front camera also has worse image quality than the rear one." Ryo-eun finally understood. He never realized there was so much technique involved in taking a selfie. Just then, he asked, "Do you save all the pictures I send you?" Hae-in replied as though it were obvious. "Of course, they're memories." "Don't tell me you haven't been saving the pictures I sent you." Ryo-eun wanted to tell her that he had not only saved every single one, but also wanted to print them all out and cover an entire wall with them. After returning home, Ryo-eun immediately took another selfie and sent it to Hae-in, asking whether he had done a better job this time. To his surprise, she praised the photo, and then sent him another selfie of her own. Ryo-eun stared at it, and wondered why she had made herself look like a round little steamed bun. But the longer he looked, the cuter he found it, so he immediately saved the picture. At first, they had only started exchanging photos to make Hae-in feel more comfortable. But collecting them one by one was unexpectedly enjoyable. If they looked through them again someday, the pictures would probably become precious memories. But while Ryo-eun was browsing through his gallery, he suddenly found an old photo. It was a picture of him with Han A-rin. Ryo-eun immediately sat upright. He clearly remembered deleting even the backup, so why was the photo still on his phone? After checking carefully, he realized that several old pictures had remained hidden inside another folder. Although seeing A-rin again that day had genuinely shocked him, he no longer had any feelings for her. Now, simply looking at her face filled him with disgust. The happy moments they had once shared began resurfacing in his mind. But if he truly wanted to forget the past, along with the suffocating smell of cigarettes and the sweet scent of hot chocolate, he needed to delete every one of those photos for good. The next day, after the last customers had left the cafe, Ryo-eun finished his shift and said goodbye to his boss. But she suddenly called him back, raised a small package, and told him to catch it. Before he could react, she tossed it straight at him. Ryo-eun looked curiously at the bag in his hands, wondering what was inside. His boss explained that it contained liquor-filled chocolates given to her by the owner of the whiskey bar. She told him to share them with Hae-in when he saw her. For some reason, she wore a strangely knowing smile as she said it. When Ryo-eun arrived at the subway station, he looked at the chocolates and remembered that the last time he had eaten one was during childhood, when he snuck some from his father's room. As he raised his head, he saw Hae-in already waiting on the bench and quickly called out to her. Hearing his voice, she immediately removed her earphones. It turned out she had been listening to a playlist she created herself. Ryo-eun quickly took out a chocolate and handed it to her, explaining that it was filled with liquor. Hae-in asked curiously, "There's actually alcohol inside it?" Ryo-eun stared at her in surprise. "Have you seriously never tried one before?" It turned out Hae-in had little interest in chocolate or sweet foods. Ryo-eun assumed she probably would not enjoy it either, since the chocolate was extremely sweet. But the next second, Hae-in suddenly snatched it from his hand and popped it into her mouth. After tasting it, she admitted that the flavor was surprisingly unique. Ryo-eun explained that it contained approximately 1% alcohol. Hae-in asked, "If it's only that much? Eating one shouldn't make me drunk, right?" Then she added politely, "Either way, thank you for treating me." Ryo-eun smiled. "It's only one piece of chocolate. You don't need to be so formal." Hae-in noticed the drink in his hand and asked, "Is that coffee? Won't drinking it this late keep you awake?" Ryo-eun laughed awkwardly. "I have an assignment that needs to be finished, and it's due the day after tomorrow. I'm planning to complete everything tonight." Pulling all-nighters to finish assignments was nothing unusual for him. Late that night, Ryo-eun was still sitting in front of his computer, wondering when he would finally finish. The screen was packed with dense lines of text, and he was so exhausted that he could barely keep his eyes open. When he checked his phone, he realized it was almost 5 in the morning. No wonder his eyelids felt so heavy. He decided to rest for a moment and regain some energy, since only the final touches remained. But just then, something on his phone immediately caught his attention. Endless Afternoon had updated her page with a playlist of recommended songs for the day. Could this mean she was going to start live streaming again? The playlist was also filled with hidden musical gems. Ryo-eun selected one of his favorite tracks and continued finishing his assignment while listening to the music. But before he knew it, he had fallen asleep and had a very strange dream. In the dream, Hae-in offered to take him to Liverpool or Manchester, the birthplace of Oasis. She promised that an entirely new world would be waiting for them there. That evening, Ryo-eun was busy working at the cafe when Han A-rin unexpectedly walked in and greeted him. He froze on the spot. He had clearly told her not to come back, so why was she here again? His boss warmly welcomed her, and A-rin ordered a hot chocolate and a slice of coconut cake. She even made a point of saying that she planned to eat everything inside the cafe before leaving. The owner told Ryo-eun to prepare the hot chocolate while she handled the coconut cake. Ryo-eun looked visibly reluctant. Why had A-rin come back again? Her presence was already getting on his nerves. Could she really be visiting this cafe because of him? He decided not to overthink it. If he started analyzing every possibility, he would never reach an end. A short while later, Ryo-eun called out, "Order 11, your food and drink are ready." A-rin walked up to the counter, but continued staring directly at him. Then she suddenly asked, "What time does the cafe close?" Ryo-eun told her that the final drink orders were taken at 11, while the cafe itself closed at 11:30. After hearing that, A-rin picked up her order and returned to her seat. Ryo-eun stared after her in confusion. He had no idea what she was planning. Had she really come all this way just to ask about the cafe's hours? Or had she genuinely only wanted another cup of hot chocolate? Before long, the following evening arrived. A-rin showed up again, arriving right on the dot. The moment Ryo-eun saw her, He was completely dumbfounded. That day, she ordered a hot chocolate and an egg tart. He could not understand why she kept returning when there was nothing left for the two of them to discuss. Over the next few days, Aaron seemed to establish a routine, arriving at the cafe at almost the exact same time every evening. The only person pleased by this development was Ryoen's boss, who was delighted to have gained a regular customer. Today, Aaron ordered a hot cocoa and a slice of cheesecake. To everyone's surprise, she also asked whether the cafe had a stamp card. The owner replied, "Of course, collect 10 stamps and you'll receive a free Americano." His boss found the request surprisingly novel. She could not remember the last time a customer had asked about a physical stamp card, since most people now collected points through mobile apps. Had everyone completely lost interest in them? Ryoen explained, "It's only a personal preference. She likes collecting souvenirs wherever she goes. Compared to digital numbers, something you can physically keep feels more meaningful. I sometimes do the same thing. I even save my movie ticket stubs." His boss looked surprised. "You know her?" Ryoen replied, "She was a senior at the same university, but she graduated while I was taking time off from school." His boss nodded in realization. "I see. You two must have been pretty close." Ryoen quickly explained, "We were never that close. And there isn't anything special for us to talk about." But in his boss's eyes, Ryoen was an absolutely terrible liar. He claimed they barely knew each other, yet he still remembered exactly what Aaron used to like. Still, she decided it would be better not to dig any deeper into their past. Everyone had their own circumstances, and whatever had happened between them was already part of their history. Besides, situations like this were often far more entertaining to an outsider than any ordinary story. It felt like watching a youth romance drama unfold in real time. After the last customers left, Ryoen finished cleaning the cafe and picked up his bag to go home, saying goodbye to his boss on the way out. She replied, "Good work today. Be careful on your way home." At that hour, the streets were nearly empty, with only a few pedestrians in sight. Ryoen had already submitted his summer internship application. Now he only needed to prepare for his official job search while waiting for final exams. His life had been overwhelmingly busy lately. He barely attended that many classes, yet the amount of homework was ridiculous. What frustrated him even more was why Han Aaron kept showing up at the cafe. He was already busy enough to lose his mind, and her presence only made him more unsettled. But as an employee, he could not simply throw a paying customer out. Before he realized it, Ryoen had arrived at the subway station. He saw Miss Hae-in sitting on the bench with her head lowered. He softly called her name, but she did not respond at all. Had she fallen asleep? Ryoen quietly sat beside her. It was his first time seeing Hae-in doze off, and judging by her expression, she must have been exhausted. Just then, Hae-in opened her eyes and noticed him sitting beside her. It turned out she had forgotten about a recording session that morning and stayed up working the night before, leaving her barely able to keep her eyes open. Ryoen told her to rest against his shoulder and promised to wake her when the train arrived. Hae-in accepted and even asked him to support her shoulder so she wouldn't slide down in her sleep. As she leaned closer, Ryoen caught a faint, fresh scent from her hair. No matter how busy his days became, he always treasured these brief moments he spent with Hae-in. After leaving the subway station, Ryoen stretched and prepared to hurry home, wash up, and rest. But he could not forget to send Miss Hae-in his photo for the day. He thought it might be fun to try something different and take one outside. So he raised his phone for a selfie. Just then, his phone suddenly began ringing. Who could possibly be calling this late? The screen also showed an unknown number. Ryoen answered the call in confusion, only for the person on the other end to say, "I knew you hadn't changed your number." Ryoen froze and asked curiously, "Who is this?" To his surprise, the caller was Han Aaron. But why was she calling him so late at night? Han Aaron told Ryoen that she had changed her number a long time ago. She also pointed out that they had not spoken in years. Ryoen asked impatiently, "So why did you suddenly call me?" Aaron said she had been about to go to sleep, but suddenly felt like talking to him, so she called. Then she even asked whether he had missed her. Ryoen immediately replied, "If there's nothing important, I'm hanging up." The moment she heard that, Aaron became flustered. "Whenever I visit the cafe, you're working. I know you can't chat, so I try not to bother you. But completely ignoring me like this is going too far." Ryoen asked, "If you know I can't talk while working, then why do you keep coming to the cafe? Do you need something from me?" Aaron replied, "The cafe is simply close to my office, so I stop by often. Besides, I don't have anything else to do after work at night." Ryoen wondered whether she had really become that bored with her life. He continued, but do you realize how distracting it is to have someone I know sitting there while I'm working? It feels like I'm constantly being watched. But A-Rin suddenly asked, do you have someone you like now? You went completely silent, so I guess I was right. Your reactions have always been so honest, both then and now. It's actually hilarious. Anyway, don't worry. I'm not the same person I used to be, and I'm not expecting anything from you. Then she asked, do you remember that 24-hour cafe we used to visit? Sometimes we stayed there all night, crammed to finish assignments at the last minute, and waited together for the first train. Even when I said I didn't want to go home, you always stayed beside me. Did you really forget all of that? I remember everything. The jazz they played in that cafe was especially good. Those were some of the happiest days of my life. Do you remember sneaking out halfway through class so we could watch a newly released movie? Only Ryo-eun knew that he remembered every single memory A-Rin mentioned, but those memories no longer stirred anything special inside him. They were simply part of a past that had already disappeared. No matter what A-Rin said, nothing between them was going to change. She eventually promised that she would never call him in the middle of the night like this again. However, she still planned to visit the cafe because she genuinely liked its hot chocolate. Ryo-eun did not particularly care. After all, he was only a part-time employee, and if he passed the summer internship selection, he would soon be leaving the cafe anyway. Just as Ryo-eun was about to end the call, A-Rin suddenly told him to wait. She revealed that she had recently moved out of her family home, and that her new apartment was located extremely close to her office. After ending the call, Ryo-eun felt completely baffled. A-Rin had called him in the middle of the night just to bring up memories from years ago. Did she still think he was the same fool who used to follow her around? Honestly, he wanted to block her number immediately. But knowing A-Rin's personality, there was no telling what she might do if he blocked her and refused to answer. It would be safer to keep his distance from her. Just then, a new message appeared on his phone. It was from Haein, asking why he wasn't home yet. She had also sent a selfie while wearing a sheet mask decorated with little cats. Ryo-eun found it unbelievably cute. He had never seen a sheet mask like that before. Haein always seemed mature and composed in public, but in that picture, she looked just like an innocent child. Ryo-eun quickly prepared to take a photo and send one back. That way, whenever these memories returned in the future, he could take the pictures out and look at them again. Several more days passed. One evening, Haein sat alone on a bench at the subway station, reading a book. When Ryo-eun walked over, he realized she was reading a poetry collection, hoping to find inspiration for songwriting. Haein explained that she only read occasionally when she had free time because she was naturally a slow reader. Whenever she discovered a poem she liked, she would copy it down by hand. Ryo-eun asked whether he could take a look. He noticed that Haein had marked all her favorite lines, making it obvious how much she truly loved poetry. Haein then explained that she normally read ebooks, but whenever she found something she especially loved, she bought a physical copy because holding it in her hands felt more comforting. Ryo-eun joked, "Then you must have over 100 poetry books at home." But Haein laughed and said she only owned 4 or 5. Still, if she ever had enough money, she wanted to collect every album, instrument, and book she loved. Just imagining herself lying among all those beloved books and possessions made her feel incredibly happy. Ryo-eun smiled. "That's a very beautiful dream." Haein replied, "It's still better than missing out on the things you love." Ryo-eun continued staring at her with a slightly puzzled expression. Then he suddenly asked, "Would you like to have dinner together? When I get a day off, we can find a restaurant somewhere nearby." To his surprise, Haein immediately agreed. Ryo-eun said, "Then you can choose whatever you want to eat." The two made their plans just as the subway train arrived at the station. The next day at work, Ryan was completely filled with excitement whenever he thought about having dinner with Haein on his day off. Noticing his unusually good mood, his boss asked, "Why do you look so happy today? Did your favorite musician post something new?" Ryo-eun scratched his head. "It's not because of that. My day off is coming up, so I'm just in a good mood." His boss sighed. "Has time really passed that quickly? I've been so busy promoting the new menu that I completely lost track of the days." Then she said, "Lee Ryo-eun, I'll treat you to drinks on our day off. You don't have anything else planned anyway." Ryo-eun turned toward her and replied shyly, "I already have plans that day." His boss asked, "You're not avoiding me because of what happened last time, are you?" Ryan quickly explained, "I really do have plans. Why would I avoid you?" She sighed. "Fine, there's nothing I can do about that. I was hoping to drink a little during my break." Ryo-eun suggested, "You could invite Shin-young. She should be off that day too." His boss replied, "I'll ask her later, but she seems busy lately. She has to study at night." If that doesn't work, I'll ask Dong-chol to come with me, so we can at least talk for a while. But most of my friends are married now, so I can't keep dragging them out to drink until late at night. Hearing that, Ryo-eun strangely began to feel guilty, even though none of it was his fault. Seeing his boss slumped over the counter in disappointment, he quickly changed the subject. Boss, I'll go take out the trash. Ryo-eun felt that his boss had become unusually lonely lately, even though she had never been like this before. But when he went outside, he unexpectedly ran into Han-a-rin again. It was already late, yet she was standing outside alone. A-rin noticed him too, and greeted him. But Ryo-eun had no desire to respond. He walked straight past her and said, "You can't smoke here. You might set the trash on fire." A-rin immediately put out her cigarette and quietly apologized. After throwing away the garbage, Ryo-eun kept his head down and started walking back toward the cafe. But A-rin suddenly rushed in front of him and blocked his path. Ryo-eun asked impatiently, "What are you doing? Move. Can't you see I'm working?" A-rin replied, "If you hate me that much, then push me aside and walk past me." Ryo-eun answered coldly, "You're seriously being ridiculous." Just then, he suddenly felt a sharp pain as she pulled his hair from behind. Ryo-eun immediately turned around and snapped, "What are you doing? Are you insane?" A-rin asked seriously, "Do you really hate me that much? I know I wronged you and hurt you in the past, but do you hate me so much that you can't even greet me normally? What do I have to do for you to forgive me? I honestly want us to be friends again. I'll do anything if you forgive me. You can even slap me." With that, A-rin leaned forward and offered him her cheek. Ryo-eun could not understand why she was behaving this way. They had not spoken in years, yet now she was suddenly refusing to leave him alone. A-rin even smiled at him as though nothing was wrong. Ryo-eun reminded himself that he could not let her drag him back into their old dynamic, so he immediately turned away. A-rin quietly said, "I didn't consider your feelings. As long as you're willing to greet me normally, I won't make jokes like this again." Ryo-eun turned back and snapped, "Didn't I already tell you? I'm still working." A-rin replied, "Fine, but you better acknowledge me next time." After returning to the cafe, Ryo-eun could not focus on his work. He simply could not understand why A-rin was suddenly acting this way. Still, some things were not so easy to forget completely. After all, she had once been the person who was always by his side. But why was he thinking about those memories again? It was incredibly frustrating. Right now, Ryo-eun only wanted to see Hae-in as soon as possible, talk about music with her, and joke around together. When he was with her, he could forget everything else and simply enjoy the moment. Just then, his boss shouted for him to come out front because the cafe had become too busy for her to handle alone. Meanwhile, the completed performance video featuring Song Hyun-jae and Hae-in was playing inside the rehearsal room, with director Yoon Yi-na watching beside them. Yi-na asked, "What do you think of the video? Once I add the production credits, it'll be finished. If there's anything you want changed, I can fix it now." Hyun-jae thought the result already looked excellent and had no problem approving it as the final version. Yi-na said, "Then I'll add some blur around the faces, especially during endless afternoon scenes." Hae-in replied shyly, "The video looks incredibly cool." Yi-na nodded. "Then we'll finish it like this. I'll create the credits using the information you sent me." Just then, Yi-na said there was something else she wanted to discuss with Hae-in. She stood up and slid her phone across the table to Hae-in. "I run an independent artist collective, and this portfolio contains a list of our current members. We aren't a large group, but we bring together creators from many different fields, including 3D artists, independent filmmakers, and animators. Endless Afternoon recently came up in one of our discussions, and we developed several ideas that you might want to hear. We're considering creating a music video for one of Endless Afternoon's songs." Hae-in asked in surprise, "Wouldn't something like that be expensive?" To her surprise, Yi-na said they would produce it completely free of charge. The visuals might be somewhat experimental and avant-garde, since we would create them based entirely on the music. You can think of it as a collaboration between independent artists. Once the video is released, we'll also help promote it. Yi-na suddenly became excited. "Honestly, I'm actually a fan of yours. Endless Afternoon's music is incredible. For now, take a look through the material. But please keep the free production offer confidential. If word gets out, we'll be swarmed by people looking for free work." Yi-na then announced, "That concludes today's meeting. Great work today, everyone." As Hae-in stood up to leave, Hyun-jae suddenly asked whether she was free that evening. He invited her to dinner, saying there was something he wanted to discuss with her privately. But Hae-in quickly waved her hands and declined. She explained that she already had plans with someone else. Then, she turned around and left the rehearsal room. Hyun-jae sighed helplessly. "This really isn't easy. I thought I'd finally managed to ask her out today. The moment Hyunjae finished speaking, Yina smacked him on the arm. You were actually trying to make a move on my favorite artist? So that was your real intention? But no one could have guessed that Hyunjae's true goal was to recruit Haein into his company. The day Raeon had been eagerly waiting for had finally arrived. His dinner with Haein. As he walked toward their meeting place, he checked the time. It was only 6:10, so he still had a while before they were supposed to meet. He had been so excited that he accidentally left much earlier than planned. He should have stayed at the library a little longer. Ryo-en used the reflection on his phone screen to check whether his hair looked right, and adjusted it with his hand. Why did he feel so nervous? He saw Haein all the time, and had even drunk with her before, so he assumed meeting her would feel completely natural. But now that they had officially made plans to see each other, everything felt different. Just as Ryo-en raised his phone to check his appearance again, Haein suddenly asked from behind him, "What are you doing?" He froze in surprise. "Why are you here so early?" It turned out her uncle was watching the studio for her, allowing Haein to leave earlier than expected. She suddenly leaned closer and looked closely at Ryo-en's face. Then she said, "Don't worry, you already look very handsome." Ryo-en immediately became embarrassed. He quickly changed the subject. "Then, let's get going. I'm already starving." Haein asked, "Where are we eating today? Is it some famous restaurant, or are we just having a normal dinner?" A short while later, Ryo-en brought her to a noodle restaurant. He explained, "They serve amazing spicy seafood noodle soup here, and the heat comes in different levels, so you can challenge them one by one." Then he looked at Haein. "You seem like someone who can handle spicy food." Haein replied, "I'm not that good with spice, just a little better than most people. You can order the basic level if you can't handle it." Hearing that, Ryo-en covered his mouth and laughed. Haein then called over a server and asked whether they could prepare the noodles at level 6. Ryo-en was instantly shocked, because the menu only listed 4 levels. But Haein explained that the restaurant secretly offered a level 8 for serious spice lovers, and during her previous visit, she had already challenged level 7. Ryo-en had no idea she had visited this restaurant before. He began wondering whether he should order level 6 as well. But Haein warned him not to push himself. Ryo-en still replied, "Since we came here together, I want to order the same thing as you. That way, it'll actually feel like we're sharing a meal together." They ordered 2 bowls of level 6 spicy seafood noodle soup along with a honey pizza. Ryo-en stared at the bright red bowl in front of him. He had not even taken a bite yet, but it already looked painfully spicy. Still, he tried to reassure himself. How bad could it possibly be? Once food passed a certain level of heat, surely all spice felt the same. But after a single bite, he immediately choked and started coughing. Haein warned him, "You really shouldn't force yourself. You can ask them to add some broth." But Ryo-en did not want to ruin the mood, so he stubbornly forced himself to finish the entire bowl. After leaving the restaurant, he felt absolutely miserable. His lips felt ready to split open. The back of his head felt tight, his stomach burned, and even his hands and feet had begun to go numb. Haein sighed. "I told you not to push yourself. All you did was make yourself suffer." Ryo-en looked up at her. "How are you completely fine?" Only then did he realize that Haein was a serious spice fanatic. He had chosen the restaurant so they could enjoy dinner and talk, but they barely had a real conversation because he spent the entire meal complaining about how spicy everything was. Once he finally began to recover, Haein asked, "Are you going straight home now? If you're not in a hurry, we can find somewhere to rest before leaving. I know a place that always puts people in a good mood." She stood up and told Ryo-en to follow her. He walked behind her with a confused expression, looking at the many different shops lining the street and wondering where she was taking him. As they continued walking, he noticed that one of the nearby venues even had a live band performing. To his surprise, Haein had brought him to a bar. She explained that customers only needed to pay for their drinks to watch the live performance for free. Then she led Ryo-en inside to find a place to sit. He suddenly realized that he had spent the entire walk overthinking things like an idiot. Still, he never knew a place like this existed near the university. He walked down the street almost every day, yet had somehow never noticed it. Just then, Haein returned with 2 bottles of beer. After sitting down, she asked Ryo-en whether he was feeling any better. Suddenly, everyone around them fell silent and turned toward the stage, where a young woman had begun introducing herself. She explained that this was only her second performance, so she might forget some lyrics or lose the rhythm along the way. Haein held out her bottle toward Ryo-en for a toast. Honestly, the woman on stage had a surprisingly beautiful voice. Ryo-en then looked around the venue again. He realized that Miss Haein had always lived in a world he knew absolutely nothing about. At that moment, she was completely focused on the performance. Ryun leaned closer and whispered into her ear, "I really like this place." Haein replied that she loved it too. The performer then prepared to sing her next song. It was a familiar track, Antifreeze by the Black Skirts. The song was about how love might change with time, yet people still longed for a feeling that would never grow cold. Ryo-eun never expected the song to be so romantic. It felt perfect to listen to with someone you liked. Before they realized it, it was almost 9 in the evening. Haein still needed to stop by the music studio, so the two left the bar before the performance had ended. On the way back, Ryo-eun said excitedly, "That place was amazing. I walked down this street almost every day on my way to campus, but I never knew anything like it was here." Haein explained that famous bands occasionally performed there on weekends, and the venue sometimes held rock parties as well. She told Ryo-eun that the next time they visited together, they had to stay until the performance ended. He agreed immediately without the slightest hesitation. Just then, Haein noticed that the convenience store ahead was still open. She suggested, "Let's get something cold to eat." Ryo-eun quickly asked, "What flavor do you want? I'll buy it." Haein chose a lemon-flavored ice pop. Afterward, the two sat beside each other on the steps outside the convenience store. Ryo-eun asked, "Has the studio been getting a lot of reservations lately?" It turned out that university festival season had brought in numerous college bands, leaving the studio fully booked almost every day. That reminded Ryo-eun that his university festival was approaching too. It had originally been scheduled for early May, but was apparently postponed after something happened. The two sat on the steps, eating their ice pops and casually talking. Then Ryo-eun suddenly thought of a question. He looked at Haein and asked, "Why did you agree to have dinner alone with me?" Haein stared at him in confusion. "Weren't you the one who invited me?" Ryo-eun immediately became embarrassed. It just felt so sudden. We've never made plans to meet alone like this before, so the whole thing still feels a little unreal. Haein stared at Ryo-eun in disbelief. Haven't we already had drinks together, talked for hours, and done plenty of things together? Ryo-eun suddenly felt as though he had asked a completely unnecessary question. Of course, he already knew all of that. He simply still found it difficult to believe. Haein was the kind of person who would pursue what she loved to the very end without regret. And even if her dream collapsed, she would still find the strength to face it. Someone who loved the same things he did was actually standing right beside him. That was why the question had remained in his mind. All he wanted was a clear answer. Haein then said, "This ice pop is really good. I've never tried this flavor before." She turned toward him. "It looks like we even have similar tastes in food. We both like spicy things too." Ryo-eun kept staring at her as the corners of his lips slowly lifted. In the middle of speaking, Haein suddenly froze. At that moment, their hands accidentally brushed against each other. Ryo-eun's heartbeat instantly fell out of rhythm. What had he just done? He had acted on impulse and kissed her. Even now, his mind was completely blank. A faint lemon flavor still seemed to linger on his lips. Haein suddenly stood up. "We should probably get going. My next reservation will arrive soon, so I need to prepare at the studio." Ryo-eun hurriedly stood up as well. The street had already been quiet, but with neither of them speaking, the silence became even more intense. Ryo-eun noticed that Haein was walking much faster than before. Was she deliberately keeping her distance so he could not see her expression? Just then, Haein turned around and asked, "You're heading home from this intersection, right?" The two then walked in separate directions. Before leaving, Ryo-eun told her that he had genuinely enjoyed the evening. But just then, Haein suddenly called him back. Ryo-eun turned around as she hesitantly said about what happened earlier. He stared at her in confusion, wondering why she had stopped halfway through the sentence. The next second, Haein walked up to him and lightly punched him with her fist. She looked up and said, "I'll talk to you properly next time. I'm already running late, so I need to hurry back to the studio." Her unexpected action left Ryo-eun too shocked to speak. Haein's cheeks also turned bright red. Then, she quickly turned around and walked away. Ryo-eun stared at her disappearing figure, unable to recover for a long time. Under the dim streetlights, even he could hardly believe what had just happened. After returning to the music studio, Haein collapsed into a chair. The moment she remembered everything that had happened, she still could not believe it. She had only suggested getting ice pops because Ryo-eun seemed to have something to say, wanting to stretch out their time together. She never expected him to suddenly kiss her. Had Ryo-eun planned it from the beginning, or had she simply been too careless to notice? Hei-in's mind was completely blank, yet an indescribable fire continued burning inside her. Just then, two students from H University's band club entered the studio. Hei-in immediately greeted them. "If you need any microphones or cables, just let me know." After the two went into the rehearsal room, Hei-in suddenly realized she should put on a mask. If anyone saw the expression on her face, they would definitely think something was wrong. She quickly pulled out her drawing tablet and tried to start working. She thought that keeping herself busy would stop her from thinking about anything else. But she could not focus on drawing at all. Right now, she only wanted to go home. In her current state, she was incapable of doing anything properly. Meanwhile, Ryo-in had already returned home. After washing up, he lay down on his bed and kept remembering the faint lemon flavor on his lips. He felt certain he would never forget it for the rest of his life. Then he looked outside and suddenly realized how beautiful the moon was that night. The next day arrived. While working, Ryo-in quietly hummed "In the Tide" by Endless Afternoon. One Shin-young walked over curiously. "You started humming the moment your shift began. Did something good happen?" Ryo-in turned around. Nothing happened. The weather just feels especially nice today. He then asked why she had not gone home yet. It turned out the owner had asked her to stay and work overtime. Shin-young suddenly asked, "Ryo-in oppa, how are things going with your crush?" Ryo-in blushed. "Pretty well, I guess." To his surprise, Shin-young told him to let her know if things went badly, because she would treat him to drinks. Ryo-in asked why she would say that. Shin-young replied, "Why are you looking so deeply into it?" "Obviously, it's because I'm interested in you." "I only said I'm interested, not that I like you. I just want to talk with you more, so don't feel pressured." Ryo-in scratched his head awkwardly. "Why would you be interested in me? We've barely even spoken." Shin-young sighed. "Even if you weren't interested at all, who asks someone that directly to their face? You really are hopelessly blunt. But it's not some huge secret. First of all, you're tall, so you stand out, and during training, I saw you quietly picking up the tissues everyone had left scattered around. That made me think you were honest and dependable." Ryo-in stared at her in disbelief. "Just because of that?" Shin-young asked. "Do you think that's strange?" Just then, a customer came over to place an order. Ryo-in quickly explained, "I don't think it's strange, and I didn't mean anything by it. I'm just surprised." After all, he had only started noticing Miss Hei-in because they frequently met on the last train. Still, Ryo-in had worried that Shin-young might feel awkward around him after what happened before, but it seemed he had underestimated her. When Shin-young noticed him staring, she immediately snapped at him and asked what he was looking at. As Ryo-in prepared the coffee, he said, "You'll definitely meet someone who treats you well. From what I've seen, you're a genuinely good person." Shin-young frowned. "That sounds way too formal. I wasn't asking you to drink with me today. I was only suggesting it for later, but you rejected me so quickly." Then she added irritably, "And don't get too comfortable. Even if things are going well with your crush now, you could still break up someday. You might even get dumped in the most painful way possible." Ryo-in turned toward her. "Do you hear yourself? Is that something a normal person says?" Just then, the cafe owner walked in to take over for Shin-young so she could go home. As Shin-young left, she turned around and playfully stuck her tongue out at Ryo-in. That was when Ryo-in suddenly realized that Hei-in had never given him any clear answer about what happened. She had not mentioned it through text or over the phone. If he didn't see her that night, he would call her himself, use it as a goodnight greeting, and subtly try to figure out how she truly felt. Meanwhile, Hei-in was having dinner with the other band members. They were holding a small celebration for successfully completing the collaboration track. Sung Hyun-jae was there as well, and to thank everyone for their hard work, he was paying for the entire dinner. Hei-in asked, "Has the release date for the new album been confirmed?" Hyun-jae replied, "It'll be released on June 27th. The teaser video will go up on the 20th, so make sure you post the interface image to your feed too. And the album cover is finished. Let me show you." He pulled out his phone, but one of the others immediately snatched it first. "This is amazing. It captures the right atmosphere, and it looks a lot like your original artwork." When Hei-in saw the cover, she was impressed by how accurately the artist had captured the character's features, while still making it look adorable. Hyun-jae then asked what she had been working on lately. Hei-in explained that she had accumulated several new song drafts, and planned to choose one to complete, probably sometime next week. Hyun-jae said he had been busy with numerous small performances, managing the company, and even handling a new production request for a television drama. On top of that, his new label was finally preparing to launch. Hei-in asked, "Is that the label you mentioned before?" He replied, "Yes. For now, it's a personal label built around me, but I plan to invite other artists later. I'm still considering who would fit. I want artists who pursue freshness, creativity, and fun. That's the entire reason I created this company. Just then, Lim Ji-won called Hyun-jae over and asked him to step outside for a cigarette. Once they were outside, Hyun-jae immediately realized that Ji-won had something he wanted to say. So he asked directly, "You know I don't smoke. Yet you deliberately brought me out here. Are you trying to stop me from recruiting Endless Afternoon?" It turned out Ji-won was not trying to stop him. He wanted Hyun-jae to help Hae-in experience a genuinely large stage. It could be a music festival or a solo concert with a large audience. Even participating as a staff member or in another role would be enough. Hae-in needed a clear goal. She might still be inexperienced and perform under a hidden identity, but if she experienced a few major stages, she would be able to reach far more listeners. Meanwhile, Hae-in stepped out into the hallway alone. There was still some time before the last train. Yet, she suddenly had no idea what she should do next. Whenever she remembered what had happened the previous night, she had no idea how she was supposed to face Ryo-in at the subway station. She wanted to confess that she was Endless Afternoon, but she still did not know how to bring it up. After returning to the room, Hae-in disagreed with one of her bandmates, and the two began arguing intensely. Yoon Ju-yeon saw how serious the argument had become and wanted to step in, but Lim Ji-won stopped him. Just leave them alone. Whenever those two drink, they turn every gathering into a music festival. Just then, Hae-in suddenly froze. She quickly asked, "What time is it?" Hyun-jae checked his phone. It's already 11:30. Hae-in realized that at this hour, she should probably start heading toward the subway station. Hyun-jae asked, "Are you worried about missing the last train?" "Don't be. I'll make sure everyone gets a taxi. So drink up, and don't worry. You can even stay until morning." Hae-in replied, "It's not really about the last train. There's someone I'm considering dating, so I don't want to go home too late." The group erupted in shock. "What? You have a boyfriend? When we offered to set you up, you said you didn't want to date. You liar." Hae-in protested. "When did I ever say I didn't want to date? I only said I didn't want to meet the guy you tried to set me up with. Besides, he isn't technically my boyfriend yet. I'm still conflicted about it." Hyun-jae asked in confusion. "What is there to be conflicted about? Is there something wrong with him?" Hae-in quickly waved her hands. "There's nothing wrong with him. He's a good person, and he always knows exactly what to say. The problem is me." One of the others immediately joked, "Your hidden violent tendencies are definitely the biggest problem." It turned out Hae-in's real concern was that she had been hiding her identity as Endless Afternoon. Hyun-jae did not see the problem. Plenty of musicians date their fans. But when Hae-in admitted that she had deliberately kept the truth from Ryo-un, everyone at the table was stunned. Hyun-jae believed she could solve everything by simply telling him that she was Endless Afternoon. But Hae-in did not want to do that, and her reason was surprisingly simple. She loved the honest, unfiltered way Ryo-un reacted whenever he talked about Endless Afternoon. He always said exactly what he felt, and Hae-in had never met anyone who spoke about Endless Afternoon with such genuine passion. Whenever Hae-in saw how sincerely Ryo-un loved Endless Afternoon, she felt inspired to create even better music. But if he discovered that she was Endless Afternoon, he might never speak honestly about her songs again. Her identity might force him to hide his true feelings whenever he was around her. Even if he stopped liking Endless Afternoon someday, he would probably hide the truth and simply smile. That was why Hae-in had no idea what to do. Yet if they continued seeing each other, she felt that she would eventually have to confess that she was Endless Afternoon. Just then, Hyun-jae suddenly said, "No." Everyone immediately turned toward him in surprise. Jeon-jae explained, "When it comes to dating, your own feelings are what matter most. If telling him makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to force yourself. Being in a relationship doesn't mean revealing every detail about yourself. After coming here, I briefly dated someone too, but I never told her everything about myself. I never explained everything I experienced as an immigrant, my family situation, or why I returned here. I genuinely liked her, and that was exactly why I didn't want her to see my vulnerable side. And I don't believe that made me selfish. Sometimes you hide painful parts of yourself because you treasure the relationship and don't want to damage it. In the end, you need to decide for yourself what you want to do. Take your time. This isn't something you can solve by rushing, and you don't absolutely have to meet him tonight." Hae-in raised her glass and quietly said, "I'll think about it more carefully." Meanwhile, Ryo-in finally finished his shift. He walked toward the subway station while reading a notification that had just arrived on his phone. All of his summer internship applications had passed the document screening stage, but it was still too early to celebrate. Passing the initial review was only the beginning. Reo-in suddenly remembered that he needed a suit for the interviews. Buying one would be expensive, so should he rent one instead? Then again, buying a cheaper suit might be more practical since he could wear it to every future interview. Just then, he found the first photo he had taken with Hae-in and wondered whether he would see her that night. If she did not appear again, he would contact her first. After all, he had been the one to kiss her. Simply waiting for her response without doing anything would be completely irresponsible. The subway station was completely empty. Why had Hae-in still not arrived this late? Could this be her way of rejecting him? Reo-won immediately stopped himself from overthinking. He had already decided that if she did not appear, he would contact her. He could regret it after hearing the clear answer. Besides, Hae-in struggled to express herself, so she probably would not reject him by simply disappearing. Just then, he heard a loud commotion behind him. Reo-in quickly turned around and finally saw Hae-in approaching. He immediately greeted her. "Are you only getting off work now?" But to Reo-un's surprise, a man walking beside her suddenly stepped forward and stared directly at him. The man asked fiercely, "Are you Lee Reo-un? So you're the jerk who's been bullying our Hae-in?"